I'd like to call the meeting to order. If you would please, no, we don't do that yet. I'm jumping ahead, right? So, board members, has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes from our meeting of August 19th? And if so, is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No nays. Minutes are adopted. Our first and only item of business is a resolution approving the fiscal year 2026 Temple Terrace Redevelopment Agency's annual budget. And our finance director, Mr. Ingham, is here to explain. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Ross and members of the board. The Temple Terrace Redevelopment Agency, TTRA, exists as a dependent special district operating under the restrictions of Chapter 163, Part 2 of the Florida State Statutes. The estimated revenue to be received by the TTRA during the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2025 and ending September 30th, 2026 from all sources equals the total of appropriations for expenditures and reserves in the budget during said period. It is estimated the city will receive a total of $1,736,844. In keeping with past practices and the requirements of Florida law, the Temple Terrace Redevelopment Agency budget is posted as part of the city's proposed fiscal year 2026 proposed budget document. The content of the budget reflects the policy direction provided by the City Council in its tentative budget for fiscal year 2026. The following revenues totaling $1,736,844 are contained in this budget. $790,366 from Hillsborough County, $10,863 from Tampa Port Authority, $910,615 from the City of Temple Terrace General Fund, and $25,000 in interest revenue. The governmental agency contributions, including the city's contributions, are based on projected FY26 millage rates and taxable values provided by the County Property Appraiser's Office. This budget includes the following expenditures: $907,134 for scheduled principal and interest payments to South State Bank for the CRA loan, $3,000 for the annual CRA audit, $400,000 for a portion of the Riverside Park construction. This budget includes $782,666 of contingency for reserves. Budget adjustments may be made by the board during the fiscal year to spend reserves. Any unspent amount at the end of the fiscal year, September 30th, 2026, will be appropriated pursuant to the next annual budget adopted by the board in compliance with Florida Statute 189.016. And staff recommends that the Temple Terrace Redevelopment Agency Board adopt the FY26 Community Redevelopment Area Budget. And I'll stand for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Ingham. Are there members of the public who wish to comment? Seeing none, board members, other questions? Board Member Fernandez.
Just for clarity for anybody that might be watching, for the revenue that is specifically from this area, TIF and general property taxes on this property, does this does that revenue have to be spent within the redevelopment area, or can it be spent in other parts of the city?
No, it is restricted for the redevelopment area. So everything that we budget, we spend, has to be connected to the CRA.
And then just for clarity, a lot of people, when they think of the CRA or the redevelopment area, they think just of those parcels that are abutting the corner of Bullard and 56th Street to River Hills. But the actual redevelopment area is a much larger area than that, correct?
It is, and Mr. Polly probably knows all the details. I know there's a map, and it does extend beyond that.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Pauly, respond to the question, but please, we're talking about the budget, so please be
Very
brief.
good. The entire CRA is 225 acres that is spread evenly across 4 quadrants. The intersection of Bush Boulevard and North 56th Street pretty much pin marks the center of that area.
Okay, that, and I'm only asking so that if anybody is watching, they understand the purpose of this budget being separate from our general budget and what, the limitations on where we can and how we can spend these funds. So that's it.
Any questions concerning the budget for the CRA? Seeing none, council board members, is there a motion?
Move to approve the fiscal year 2026 Trumbull Terrace Redevelopment Agency annual budget.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion of the motion. If not, all those in favor say aye. Oh, roll call vote?
Roll call vote.
Okay, thank you very much for catching that for me. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Agency Member Fernandez.
Yeah, aye.
Agency Member Chambers.
Aye.
Agency Member Kravitz.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Schisler.
Aye.
Mayor Ross.
Yes, aye. Good, unanimous. The budget is adopted. Thank you, Mr. Ingham. Board members, any other business to discuss at this time? If not, we will adjourn, and we will meet here at 6 o'clock for the regularly scheduled council meeting.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr.
I just have an item.
Board Member
Very
Kravitz.
small. I was wondering if I could ask a question to Mr. Pauly, if we have a few minutes.
Okay.
Hi, good evening. Not an ambush. If you don't know all the details, totally fine. I'm just curious about this. If we were to reduce the area of the CRA, I'm assuming that would be done through an ordinance, adjusting the previous ordinance that created the CRA or some process along those lines. And I was wondering if you could maybe, it doesn't have to be right now, but maybe some point in the future, brief us on what that might entail and what sort of the impact would be potentially on funding involved in the CRA, because my specific concern is that west of 56th Street, there are some single-family home neighborhoods there that are in the CRA, and I think also just southeast of 56th Street, near the new park that's being planned along Sunnyside, that some of those areas are also in the CRA, and I'm keen to preserve what single-family home neighborhoods we have, because we're not zoning very many new ones, and the specific rules in the CRA have provisions, for example, for zero lot line construction and for multiple story construction. So if someone were to insert something like that in one of these areas, I think it would have a really negative impact on the environment there. So I was curious if we could reduce the CRA to exclude some of these existing established neighborhoods, because I don't think anyone actually plans to develop those as part of downtown. They're several blocks away from the core area that we've always looked at. So I'd be curious if at some point in the future you might be able to provide some information on that.
I can certainly look into that. I know that that would be a collaborative effort between my department and the legal department, because as you know, that was all codified many, many moons ago. But just a quick correction there, the homes along Springdale, Sunnyside, those are not in the CRA. there are no single-family homes within the CRA along either of those roadways or even in that southeast quadrant. There are single-family homes located in the other 3 quadrants, but just not in the southeast quadrant.
Okay, I'll double check that. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Council is, board, is that direction that we want to give them? That's probably more than 4 hours worth of work. Is that something this body wants to direct them to do?
I don't have any issue reviewing some of the, I don't know how easy it would be to change it, but I don't have any issue reviewing if what we have designated as the CRA is the best, will serve the best use of the property that is currently located within the boundaries. I mean, I don't even, it was done before, it was done a long time ago, and I don't remember why it was even established with those boundaries.
Yeah, I'm the same way, and I don't even know if the example the agency member Kravitz gave about putting in 0 lot lines is part, would that be allowed by code? I don't even know any of that. I don't see a big pressing need for it right now, but
Well, we've approved some multifamily
We have,
housing in the
yes.
CRA
We have.
already. I don't know what the impact of now removing that.
Wasn't that vacant property?
it was vacant. That was the overlooked property, but
Mr. Schoen, do you know off the top of your head whether state law allows us to even do that?
That's what I'm looking up right now, because there was new legislation that made a lot of restrictions on CRAs and came up with things that could possibly eliminate a CRA if you did that. It said, existing CRAs are prohibited from new debt or projects after July 1 of 2025. They've established earlier termination date of September 30th, 2045 for most existing CRAs. So there are a lot of new rules. We'd have to look that up to see if changing the area was going to have any detrimental effect on our CRA existing at all. So we just need to be careful, but we need to do a little research.
Okay.
Just have one brief comment to follow up on that.
Okay, Councilmember Kravitz.
Just wanted to say, I checked the map. You're absolutely right. I was referring to the few, I think it's 8 properties south of River Hills. So that you are correct, though, that Springdale is not affected by it, except on the west side where there are no homes.
That's correct.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, City Council will meet at 6 o'clock for our regularly scheduled meeting. We are adjourned.
Excuse me? Yeah.
You got it right.
Good evening. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody, to the September 16th meeting of the Temple Terrace City Council. I'd like to remind everybody to please silence your electronic devices. And if you would, please stand and join me for the invocation and the pledge. Lord, we pray tonight for healing in our country. Help all Americans reject political violence as a solution to our differences. Help us to remember that our democratic republic is fragile and that violence only serves to threaten the very freedoms we all enjoy as Americans. May we all condemn the use of violence towards our fellow Americans, regardless of who the victim might be. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. For those of you who don't frequently attend our meetings, we have a tradition here in Temple Terrace whereby we start each meeting with an interesting or historical fact about our city or the region that we live in. We rotate that duty among us, and it's become harder and harder over time because we've covered all the easy, low-hanging fruits. So now, when it comes your turn, it's quite a project. And so tonight, it falls on Councilmember Kravitz. Councilmember?
Thanks. Good evening, everyone. So I'm going to prefix this with, this is not legal advice, it's just my opinion, because sometimes there's a little bit of confusion about that. So everyone just enjoy my own personal opinion. So we are going to be coming up soon on a bond issue, general obligation bond for a PFAS filtration system, possibly. Maybe we'll go that direction, maybe we won't, but I thought it would be interesting to take a little bit of a dive down memory lane and look at some of the bond issues that Temple Terrace has done in the past. So about 100 years ago, when the city was founded, and I spoke to this, I think, at my previous historical fact about how the developing company that came in and got started with Temple Terrace ran into some difficulties and went bankrupt, and they weren't able to live up to their obligations. And in the course of that, Temple Terrace issued a bond in 1925, which was in fact for water and electricity. So the idea was to convert the single spring-fed well into a more elaborate system that could supply a growing city. And it wasn't difficult at that time to issue a bond because 1925 was right in the middle of the Florida land boom. So there was a lot of investor interest. And that was, in fact, what was buoying the development company that I just mentioned. And that turned sour about a year later in 1926. So that development company was not the only one that fell victim to New York banks deciding that they weren't going to fund the Florida land acquisitions of wealthy Northerners anymore. So what happened then? So Temple Terrace issued Ordinance Number 1. So this is actually the very first ordinance that Temple Terrace ever issued. And it was for a special election to issue bonds to build a municipal waterworks and electric light plant. So these are certainly critical things for any community. You know, most communities do not have their own electrical plants anymore. You know, some major cities probably do. I know for a fact that Los Angeles has a Department of Water and Power, but generally smaller cities will buy their power on the market. Water, it depends. But back in 1925, the city made the decision to put to the voters whether they wanted to adopt a bond to have those things locally. And the bond passed. So leading into this Florida land collapse in 1926, the city had just issued a fair amount of debt in order to build out its infrastructure. And of course, there were mixed results, but we'll get to that in just a minute. The ordinance itself was well done, so it had a very clearly defined purpose. It limited the bond to essential infrastructure like water and electricity, so some cities at that time would issue bonds without those limitations, and the money would wander to other purposes, which is an obvious problem when you have a particular budget that you're trying to stick to or goals that you're trying to achieve. So at least in Temple Terrace, the money was not used for speculation. But nevertheless, Temple Terrace at the time did fall victim to history. And also the bond back then had a very transparent process, so it was put to the voters. There weren't that many back then, but they did have their say. And there was a clear timeline. So they laid out from incorporation in May to the election on October 3rd, how the bond was going to be discussed and put to the voters. So back then, rather progressive. And this was a long time before public engagement like that became really common. But in Temple Terrace, it was there from the start, which is kind of heartening. So Temple Terrace started building its municipal water system. And as we all know, in 1926, which I again discussed in my previous historical fact, the development company went bankrupt. And so what happened in 1926, the city had to take over the parks, the parkways, the golf course, and the water system, which was, of course, also needed to irrigate the golf course at the time. So it's linked together, the failure of the development company and the initial foray that Temple Terrace made into managing its own water and managing its own infrastructure. So I found that pretty interesting that it was in response to that. But I don't know if anyone is necessarily at fault. As we all know, sometimes financial markets are weird and cause a lot of collateral damage and hurt people without any sort of reason or rhyme to it. So as the developers went bankrupt, the city stepped in, but by then the money had dried up from New York. So the city entered into a period of austerity because the system that they had laid out in 1926 was for a much larger development. If we all remember how many homes had been planned, hundreds of homes in the Mediterranean revival style were supposed to be built. In the end, we got about 30 back then, I think, and the developers were advertising that we were going to have a Catizen, like in Sarasota, which is this opulent mansion. Many other promises were made that didn't come to fruition, unfortunately. And so the tax revenues that had been planned for that development, for that large city that had been laid out by these developers, didn't manifest. And so you had a large bond for a large water system, which didn't have a large city at the end that it was going to serve. And as a result, you didn't have large tax revenues to pay for all of it. And so Temple Terrace struggled for about 20 or 30 years. And in the 1940s, finally, Temple Terrace began to restructure its debt, and it reduced in size considerably in 1946. So Temple Terrace actually was quite large relative even to its current size when it was originally created. Then it shrank, and then ever since 1946, it's been gradually growing again after shrinking. But it's not all bad news, because in 1962, I found there was another bond issued after the city had largely stabilized, and that one was for a sewer system. Now, that bond obviously worked out better because we have sewers, and that was at that point in time maybe a little more realistic and less speculative, because when a city is first founded and nothing is built, it could really go any way. When a city is a little bit more established, things can generally be predicted with a little bit more certainty. And that's especially true now because we've almost filled out our entire area, and we're relatively built up, and we have relatively sound projections about what kind of revenue is going to come in. So here we are a century later. So we have similar challenges. We have a potentially large issue coming up that we might need to use a general obligation bond to address. But I think a lot of the risks that existed when we had trouble with the original one in 1925 are no longer a factor, which is very good. And I'm sure that we'll also do a good job writing the bond, and that it'll be a good process to engage the public and bring them in to gain their acceptance for it. And so I look forward to that, and we'll see how that goes if we need one. And if we don't need one, then we can maybe go a different direction. But so that's the history of general obligation bonds in Temple Terrace. And hopefully it'll be a good decision, whichever way we go. So that's my historic fact. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Councilmember Kravitz. Next item is Employee of the Month for the month of August. I'd like to invite Susie Berger to the podium. Good evening, Ms. Berger.
Hello.
So, Ms. Berger's being recognized as the August Employee of the Month. And just, again, for those of you who don't frequently come here, in Temple Terrace, the Employee of the Month is selected by the employees themselves. This is not a management decision. So it's really a significant honor to be chosen as Employee of the Month. We don't have thousands of employees, but we have some really high-performing people in our organization, and for them to think that you deserve Employee of the Month is really significant. So Susie's gone above and beyond in her role, stepping up to take on new challenges while still excelling in her daily responsibilities. Her dedication and initiative have made significant impacts across multiple departments in Temple Terrace. Susie originally began her career with the city as an administrative assistant in the city clerk's office. While in that role, she showed a strong commitment to professional growth and enrolled in college courses with the goal of becoming the deputy city clerk. Susie decided to move on from there when an opportunity arose in the fleet department. So she moved over there and embraced the challenge and transitioned into a new role. Since joining Fleet, Susie's worked diligently to clean up paperwork, organize completed jobs, and streamline inventory. Her efforts improved processes and freed up staff to focus more on fleet operations rather than on administrative tasks. Demonstrating her go-getter attitude, which I can personally attest to when she was in the clerk's office, she goes after things. She also partnered with the Public Works Director to take over invoice processing for all the Public Works divisions. And there's a lot going on in Public Works, so that's no small task. By doing so, she eliminated the need for additional outside staff and now ensures invoices for fleet, Public Works, and utilities are processed quickly, often within 1 day, so that they can be sent to accounting for payment. In addition to her expanded responsibilities, Susie continues her college coursework, further enhancing her skills and opening doors to future career opportunities with the city. Her dedication, positive attitude, and drive to support her colleagues have proven her to be a valuable asset. With her initiative, efficiency, and ever-present smile, sunshine, Susie Shine, we call it around here, she truly embodies the spirit of teamwork and service that makes the city stronger. We're very proud of all that you've accomplished here, Susie, and look forward to all that you're still going to accomplish. And so please join me in congratulating Susie for being August's Employee of the Month. Would you like to say a few words?
Just thank you very much, and I work with a great group of people, and just appreciate it.
Well, you're very modest, because we work with you, and you're pretty good too, so.
One, two, three. Give me 1 second. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Next up, we have a presentation by Black and Veatch regarding Hillsborough County's recent stormwater study, which is should be of significant interest to those of us in Temple Terrace. And so welcome, Mr. Dinges.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah, very good. It took me a minute, but I got it. So I took a roll there. So thank you for being here, sir. And it's all yours.
Appreciate that. I have a brief and hopefully informative presentation and glad to answer any questions. I'll take about 15 minutes to summarize the work we did. And also joined by Josh Pilati from Hillsborough County. Thank you for being here, Josh. We had a very collaborative effort working with the staff. So hopefully, are the slides showing? There they are. Perfect. Right on time. Thank you. So before I dive in, let me frame some context for you. We had a really significant series of storm events last year, and then we're almost a year anniversary of Hurricane Milton, and there was tremendous flooding across Hillsborough County. And so we, as a contractor to Hillsborough County, were engaged to perform a post-hurricane regional stormwater assessment. And this is a summary of those findings. But I want to talk a little bit about what our objectives were and how we went about this and what our findings and recommendations were all about. So the assessment goals and objectives were to evaluate the performance of the stormwater program across key program areas. And then once we did that, define stormwater needs and develop recommendations around those. And you can't really go into this without thinking about the event last year. I'm a water resource engineer. I've practiced, in hydrology and hydraulics and all of my almost over 30 years now in the state of Florida. Last year was just an incredible rainfall year. Set a new record at over 80 inches of rainfall through a series of events. And we borrowed this slide from the Southwest Florida Water Management District. You can see the green bars are your normal monthly rainfall total. Those are your averages per month, right?
Thank you.
So you began to see that in July of last year, we had a series of events that we began to see above normal rainfall. So conditions were very, very wet. And then when October is supposed to be a month when we start to go into the dry season, we're all looking forward to that this year, right? Unfortunately, we received a very significant storm event, 10 to 15 inches of rainfall in a very short period of time, basically less than 2 days, on top of already saturated conditions. And the flooding was it's really unprecedented in our recent memory. And going back through the records, it's very difficult to find an event that would exceed something like that. So with that in mind, we developed an approach, a collaborative approach with the Hillsborough County staff. And the Board of County Commissioners wanted this assessment to be independent. But we had to collaborate with their team because they have so much data. So that was our first step, to gather data, to engage with stakeholders and with members of the public to collect additional information, evaluate the program components. And once we did that evaluation, that framed our findings, then our recommendations, and then we presented our summary of findings in kind of an executive summary fashion, but we also delivered a comprehensive project report that has all kinds of information contained in it. And we're certainly happy to share that with all of you if you would like. So our data gathering process, I won't go into too much detail here, but we really worked very hard with the staff from Hillsborough County to get all the data that we could, and it was quite voluminous. Tremendous amounts of spatial data reports. We held interviews. Thanks to your staff, we held an interview here as well in Temple Terrace to collect information from your staff. We did that with Plant City. We did that with City of Tampa. We interviewed the county commissioners. We held public engagement events. That was all very helpful to kind of form a database that we could evaluate. And that process of evaluating data took months. The overall effort took about 7 months, and we spent most of that time period evaluating data. So as it came in, we would evaluate more, we would collect more and evaluate that and continue to build that as we went through. I mentioned briefly the engagement process. That was very important to supplement all the other types of data that we mentioned. That was neighborhood meetings, interviews, stakeholder discussions, and then we held a series of open house meetings. We worked directly with the stakeholders to hold those 8 engagement meetings. We had tremendous turnout. We had over 450 citizens attend those meetings, and they logged comments and provided supplemental information. So I think that was a successful engagement process. And when you go out into the community, you learn a lot. So, I'm an engineer, I like data and graphs, but when you go talk to the community, you really learn a lot about how they experienced these flooding events, and we were able to glean additional information that informed our recommendations and our findings. So I would encourage, if you ever do an assessment like this, definitely engage the members of the public. One of the results that came out of that effort we called this flood focus areas. It's not super easy to see at this scale, but let me explain this just for a moment. We began to see trends or patterns of areas that received much more significant flooding than others. Now, there was flooding all over Hillsborough County, within your city as well. But we noticed that in certain areas, we needed to focus in and look at what was going on in these areas. So those flood focus areas helped us to get out to the community. We used this particular graphic. We plotted it on a big 4x4 board, and we let the public engage, and they could see these flood focus areas, and each one was a little different. Some were unique. Some were along stream systems along the Alafaya River. Some were neighborhoods that really struggled with too much water coming into them. And these flood focus areas really serve as a guide for looking at stormwater improvements going forward. So on to our findings, and I'll touch on this briefly. These findings that we had were definitely paired with what I'm going to call programmatic recommendations. So we gave the same presentation to the Board of County Commissioners so that they could also understand what our findings were and what their program components looked like and what recommendations they needed to consider moving forward. So Hillsborough County has a very robust flood modeling team, and it provides tremendous benefit. And we looked at the results of where those flood models would predict that there would be flooding. And we collected thousands of photographs and interviewed, and we compared what we found with those models, and turns out they correlate pretty well. So they do a good job of predicting where it's going to flood. Our recommendation being to continue to update those models so that they can even do a better job in the future. The team at Hillsborough County has always done that. They continue to improve their models as they get new information. When you have a storm event, you can put that new information into those models and then predict and help everybody understand where their flood risks, if you're in a particular location, what your flood risk would be. That pairs hand in hand with flood mapping once the models give results. There's maps out there that can inform your flood risk. We interestingly heard from quite a few citizens in Hillsborough County that they didn't know, or if they were in an area they didn't think they were going to flood, some of them flooded anyway. A couple reasons for that. One being the flood event was very, very significant and even beyond what models can predict. The other is the federal FEMA floodplain maps are not necessarily as well refined as the county's maps. So many of those residents told us, hey, I didn't think I was in a FEMA flood zone, and some of them weren't flooded anyway. But it's worth noting that their homes were often included within the county's mapped floodplains, which are very high resolution models, and it's really good information. So our recommendation from that was make all that information available, and it actually is at this point, that the residents can see both what the FEMA flood risk maps look like, and then also what the county's flood maps look like, to give very detailed information. So that's kind of the predictive side of the stormwater program. We also took a look at the, let me call it the boots on the ground part of the program, the assets. We reviewed a tremendous amount of asset data, so you can kind of categorize those assets into your ditches and all the ancillary components like your inlets and discharge structures, things of that nature that operate by gravity. And then there are stormwater pump stations, 39 or 40 of those around the county, that provide service to recover systems. Once an area floods, it helps evacuate the flood water out. So with the ditches, the public perception was that many of the ditches were not well maintained. We heard that comment over and over and over again. The county's data indicated that most of the ditch systems were in good condition. I think the difference between the two, you can attribute that to the sense that everybody thinks a ditch should be perfectly manicured, but you can look at a ditch and it may be grown up, but still have reasonable hydraulic performance, and it's doing its job just fine. But we have to communicate that message. The pump station program, we found that many of those pump stations were nearing the end of their design life. So our recommendations were to prioritize the high-risk ditches for detailed maintenance plan, and then one of the issues they're facing, that the county is facing, is not all the ditches are publicly owned. So you got to prioritize the high maintenance, the areas that really need frequent maintenance, and address those. And then also continue to implement a pump station assessment and modernization effort. We did some policy review with development standards, which are typically based on what's called a 25-year, 24-hour storm event. Hurricane Milton far exceeded that. And what we found, you look at these photographs of flooding adjacent to brand new developments that are built up to standards. We did notice that development review experiences resource limitations when there's a lot of development going on. That's difficult to keep up. So our key recommendations were to provide additional staffing levels, do standard sufficiency reviews, particularly in flood-prone areas, and then to improve intergovernmental coordination so you don't end up with different standards in municipal versus county governments. I think that's important to make sure those standards are aligned, because it rains regardless of municipal boundaries, of course. Paired with that is overall recommendation for interagency coordination. Each of these entities that you see, the City of Temple Terrace being one of them, they all have assets and they all have resources. And while there has been coordination, we did see the opportunity for improved interagency coordination and also to coordinate with FDOT as they build new roadways, expanded roadways, try to collaborate on how floodwaters get managed, and then even to coordinate with adjacent counties on regional flood protection projects. We saw evidence in Hurricane Milton, many watersheds outside of Hillsborough County contributed floodwater coming into Hillsborough County, indicating that you kind of need a broader scale, large view on how to coordinate with those counties. Public awareness and support. That outreach campaign was very effective, but what we found it was the detailed work program was really not well understood. The county's got a very robust work program around improving the stormwater systems. They just didn't understand. So our key recommendations were to continue to enhance public awareness and keep that comprehensive communication strategy fresh and moving forward, and provide information for the residents so they understood. All of it's not possible without capital improvements and funding, so we did take a look at capital improvements, and what we found was the improvements needed really far outstrip the available resources, financial resources. So you can see it on the graph. They really need to implement their full capital improvements program, about $300 million for over 300 projects. And you can see the light blue, the gap in funding that's necessary, that needs to be closed. And what we found was if you fully implement that capital improvements program, that you could realize about $120 million in flood damage savings. And that's coming right out of the predictive models, that if you were to improve flooding, then you would see a direct correlation between the investment and the benefit to the community. And we were able to quantify that. In conclusion, we found that there was a very robust and beneficial flood management program that has those different components. There's an outreach component, an assessment component, a capital component. Those are all components. It's a very robust and beneficial program. We found that their key strengths include flood modeling and mapping, how they regulate, and the capital improvement programs. Those are strengths. Improvements we found in asset management, as I mentioned, including ditch and stormwater pump station maintenance, interagency coordination, and public awareness. Those present opportunities for improvement, and many of those are already underway. Public outreach for this type of assessment was very successful, and they should continue to enhance the outreach program. And program funding, as I mentioned, really needs elevated consideration to fully implement those improvements, and that's not an easy task, to try to find the funding to fully implement the capital improvements program. And we have to remember, this was record rainfall last year. It led to record-breaking flooding. And many of the assets that are designed to handle flooding, they were even built prior to regulation. So they were not built to a standard to manage large flood events. And even flood events at that scale, you really can't even afford the infrastructure that would handle that much flooding. So nevertheless, we felt the recommendations were warranted, and in conclusion, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Dinges. Council members, questions? Councilmember Fernandez.
So you indicated, so in Temple Terrace, we do have the river that flows through the city, but we also have the bypass canal, which takes excess water in a potential flood event. So our flooding here did not come from being in close proximity to a water source. It was really that the stormwater system couldn't handle, it either couldn't handle the volume of water, or because the volume of water was so heavy, it brought so much debris into the system that it made the system less effective. So how are your recommendations that you've made? Some of the ponds or retention ponds in the city are managed by the city of Temple Terrace. Some of them are managed by Hillsborough County. How are your recommendations for capital improvements going to, how could they be used in Temple Terrace to, I understand it was an enormous flood event, but to help mitigate this issue in the future?
Yeah, I think it goes back to separating maintenance out for just a minute. Maintenance is really important for these systems, and prioritizing the systems that are most critical to providing the level of service that you need. So if you have, and if you have systems within the city that are shared with or maintained by the county, I think that interagency coordination is really essential. So I think the focus on maintenance is critical, but that takes resources. So the capital improvements funding, yes, that is that's to be applied to new projects or improvements, but then there has to be resources applied to maintaining your assets.
So you also indicated that some of the areas are, just because of the age of when they were built prior to current standards for stormwater.
Right.
Have you made recommendations in this report to remediate those structures or systems to help with future, I don't want to say storm events?
All right, Josh, you want to tackle that one?
Well, no, that's a great point, and like John was saying, that was one of the key items that we talked with our county commission about too. And so the 6 or 7 month evaluation that Black and Veatch has recently completed was always conceived as a first phase in what's going to continue in further development and refinement of some potential capital improvement projects to help mitigate flooding. So the county is engaged in the next step of project development, doing some alternatives analysis, and working together with Black and Veatch on that next phase to bring forth capital projects to our board that they can consider, and some potential funding opportunities for those as well.
I just have one more question. So as a city council person, what I need is, I would like to know specifically what the city needs to do in order to improve, or if we need to, and I'm not talking about maintenance, because we do, I think that we know what we need to do in that regard, but specifically, what do we need to do to improve the stormwater system, and what we need Hillsborough County to do as an interlocking system? What improvements need to be made for older parts of the system? I know that newer things are built to a different standard, but I would like to see more of specifically what we would need to do in order to help mitigate storm systems or storm problems in the future.
So one thing that the county is working on right now is updates to our watershed master plans. So we have 17 watersheds across Hillsborough County. And so those watershed master plans will involve alternatives analysis that'll help identify best management practices and additional capital improvements that may be made to some of that older infrastructure to help bring it up to a higher level, or even to just our current standard. So I would encourage the city to make sure that they're doing the same kind of things. I know collaboration and partnership was a key theme of this entire effort, and something that we're taking to heart, that recommendation, and making sure that we enhance the level of not just community and stakeholder engagement, but partner agencies as well throughout the efforts that we're doing with all 3 cities. So we're going to continue doing that.
I do have one question for the city manager.
Okay.
So, given that we do have components of the system that we manage and maintain, but we are interconnected with Hillsborough County, how can we make sure that as a cohesive system that, we don't make massive improvements here and then their pipes are under capacity to handle the improvements that we've made, or vice versa, that we're making improvements that are synchronized or compatible?
So, good evening, Mayor, members of council. So a couple of things. So in this year's budget, and a budget hopefully you'll adopt tonight, you have $200,000 actually for a stormwater study, which is, I think, kind of falls in line with what the county is doing as well, identifying opportunities, identifying potential funding streams. Mr. Warrenfeldt is here, and he can speak to this as well, but we have a pretty strong idea, pretty good idea of where our stormwater typically will go. We know the areas in the city that are problematic areas. Pleasant Terrace, a neighborhood that has historically been problematic because that neighborhood was developed over the years without really any stormwater infrastructure. And so we are playing catch up there. We're actually in conversations with DOT, a lot of borrow pit up in that neighborhood, and whether we can take over maintenance for that borrow pit to allow us to provide some more capacity for some stormwater relief in that part of the community. We know in Rolling Terrace, the flood issues that we've had there, we've had multiple meetings with Rolling Terrace. We know where that water goes. That water leaves that pond area and it is pumped over to the Hillsborough River. We know that the county nearby, they have a lift station that hopefully they'll add a generator to as part of the upgrades that they're talking about. That will help, I think, offset some of the water that was sort of ponding in that general area of the community. So we're having these conversations. I know also the county is updated, and this was alluded to in the presentation, the county has updated their floodplains. So we're going to see members of neighborhoods in our community that are going to change in terms of their flood zone designation, because we're going to be submitting that also to FEMA. So all these efforts are happening. One advantage, and I say advantage for the purposes of this, is that the county has, is that they have a stormwater fee. We do not have that in this community. So if we're addressing stormwater, we are going to be addressing it likely. If we can get grants, we can get grants, but it's also going to be a general fund expenditure, most likely.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Two real quick ones. Segueing off the recommendations by your analysis, will you, or have you, or do you guys intend on sharing any best practices that we need to look at for future development? I mean, the capital spending is going to have to take care of what's existing and so forth, in maintenance. But as we future expansion, either be annexation or just development, redevelopment within our area, are you guys going to be able to offer any suggestions on things that maybe we ought to do it this way instead of that way type thing for potential weather events that are going to, I hope, will probably continue into at least the near-term future?
Okay, let me try to.
Sure.
Yeah, okay, I'll start. Okay. Vice Mayor, we did not do a side-by-side comparison of all the land development, but we did do some comparison, and then our project report has a section kind of dedicated to those practices for development standards and the need to have them consistently applied, so that within a watershed, you're not looking at political boundaries, you're looking at a watershed boundary being the basis for applying standards. So there's more detail in that report about how that needs to be done. I don't know, Josh, if you have anything else.
And that'll be shared with the local municipalities?
Yes, we can.
Cool.
I think that
Yeah,
report's
I can
available.
speak to. I believe that we shared the executive summary as well as the full details of the report. The county has also made it public on the county website as well. So, but if any of you all would like us to share it with you directly, we'll be happy to do that, so.
One final tiny question. WMMP, what's that? Everybody's got acronyms for everything. What was that?
That's a watershed management plan. It's,
Okay, good deal. Thank you.
use the models and you assess where the flooding is and then look at the projects to resolve the flooding.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Good presentation. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilmember Kravitz.
Yeah, thank you. Really interesting, and appreciate the insight. And I'd very much appreciate if you shared any documentation you have. Please send it all around and keep us abreast of that. I just wanted to ask two questions. The first one is the $131 million figure. Are you in a position to tell me what the source is for that, or how it was calculated?
Provide that?
Yeah, go
Sure.
ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, that came from county staff.
Okay.
So based on our assessment of all of the infrastructure needs across the county's stormwater system, culvert replacements, neighborhood drainage improvements, and things like that.
Okay. The second question was regarding the standards for floodwater abatement. I caught that you mentioned, even in newer developments, that the standards applied there are not sufficient. Is that generally true, or only in exceptional circumstances? Should we be looking at stricter standards for Temple Terrace than the ones that are typically applied?
Yeah, I'll try to take that one. So each watershed sometimes has to be treated differently. Some watersheds are very sensitive to certain types of precipitation events, some others. You have closed basins where rainfall comes in and just there's no way to get it out other than pumping it. So I think in applying those standards, you need to look at the particular watershed that you sit, or watersheds that you sit within. And I think consistency with county standards is very important, because the county has specific standards for certain watersheds that are very flood sensitive. Mm-hmm. So I think aligning, if you're not aligned, aligning with that, I think is important to provide protection.
Yeah, and again, we would be happy to share any information, any further details on that with you as well. So the county in its land development code has floodplain regulations. And so there's floodplain regulations that, both the county and SwiftMud, the permitting agency, share. Hillsborough County's floodplain regulations go a little bit above and beyond that in a couple areas. One is with compensatory floodplain storage, known as cup for cup requirement. And then the other one is, like John was mentioning, there are higher level standards in peak and volume sensitive areas. So areas that are already higher and more susceptible to either high volume of rainfall or to high intensity rainfall. So there are some additional higher standards that the county does employ in terms of floodplain regulations. And that was, again, something that John and the Black and Veatch team looked at across the different municipalities within the county as well.
What I'm hearing is that it's a nuanced issue that you would look at in a given flood area, and then you would decide what standards might be applied there. So will we be hearing some input from you about that with respect to Temple Terrace specifically later on?
So far, the county hasn't engaged Black and Veatch to do any further, I don't think, analysis regarding the other cities' regulations, but that may be something that, if you are interested in considering. Our board so far has not directed us to look at any changes to those standards yet, but that may, again, be something that they want to explore further as well, because there would certainly be a lot of impacts in doing something like that.
Okay, good. So if we want that, we'll have to order it separately. Thank you.
I have a question, Mr. Dinges, and I don't know if there's even an answer to this, but most of our flooding, much like the city of Tampa, Hillsborough, really, everybody had similar problems. Most of the strategies that I see here all relate to either storing the stormwater or getting the stormwater faster and quicker to wherever it's going to go to the outfall, the rivers or basins or whatever. Our problem in Temple Terrace was very minor in terms of system failures and clogged pipes and stuff. It mostly came down to the river was over capacity, the storage areas were over capacity, the retention ponds couldn't drain because they couldn't flow into the river because it was at over capacity. Adding to that, as you well know, we got Pasco County's water came down via Cypress Creek, which enters into the Hillsborough River below the crosstown, but below the bypass canal. So we were getting all of this Pasco County water flooding down Cypress Creek, coming in near Morris Bridge Road. The conservation area on the north side of Fowler that belongs to the University of South Florida, which is normally holds millions of gallons, that became so flooded that that water was actually our system started flowing backwards because the water from that was flowing under Fletcher Avenue and filling up retention ponds that had drained. And so we have some stormwater projects, lots of them, to increase the capacity to get the water off the streets and off the properties faster. But if there's nowhere to take it, all we're really doing is increasing the storage because the pipes are bigger and they can hold more water. But if it can't outfall into the river, is there a solution to that? Because all the pumps and pipes in the world won't solve this if we don't have somewhere for the water to go. And the river can only flow so fast.
Correct.
And the lakes can only take, gravity's gravity. It doesn't, so is there an answer to that? I don't know if there even is one.
Well, there is in the concept of level of service, and you can only afford to design and build to a certain level of service, and the conditions of your outfall are directly related to that. So if you have unprecedented flooding in the river or in the bay, let's say that if you have a storm surge in the bay, you're exactly right. You can't, there's nowhere to put the water. You've run out of places for it to go. So you have to pick a level of service that is reasonable and economical and provides a level of protection that you're willing to, or level of risk, if you will, that you're willing to live with and willing to abate through your project. So you typically do that with analysis with these flood models where you pick a level of service. In unprecedented conditions like we saw last year, your systems just can't handle that. So that if you tried to design a system to get rid of that much water, it would be an enormous cost. If everybody put their resources together, really couldn't afford it because you just can't move that much water out of the river and into the bay when you have a rainfall event of that magnitude, such as Hurricane Milton.
Okay. Mr. Dinges, Mr. Pilati, thank you for taking time out to be with us tonight. We're very happy that you came, and so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Very appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, council, has everybody reviewed the minutes from our September 2nd city council meeting? And if so, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Motion is second. Is there comments or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No nays. Minutes are adopted. Same issue. Has everybody had an opportunity to read the minutes of our September 3rd special city council meeting minutes? And if so, is there a motion for that?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Are there corrections to the minutes? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays. Minutes are adopted. Persons wishing to be heard on items not listed on the agenda or items on the consent agenda. There are forms in the back of the room. If anybody wishes to address the council, you fill out a form, you give it to a city clerk, Mrs. Sater. We have a 3-minute time limit imposed on each speaker. We do ask that speakers come to the podium, state their name and city of residence. First request to speak is from Mr. Loeb. Good evening, Mr. Loeb.
Good evening, everybody. Charles Loeb, Terrace Park. And tonight I want to talk about basically current events. Of course, if anyone that missed that fire police presentation, it was very, very interesting to learn the inner working about the fire and police department. People do have another chance, of course, on October 11th when the fire department's going to hold their open house. I did want to mention that. Of course, another current event is something you all will have to think about. Is on October 7th. That's National Night Out. That's on a Tuesday, that's on your next council meeting. And I think I recall last year that you went out, had a short meeting, and that you went out to the National Night Out. Of course, coming up is Rosh Hashanah on around 7 p.m. on the 22nd, which is Monday. And a little earlier than that is our Riders Club meeting at 2 o'clock. So I did want to mention that in case anybody besides Councilman Chambers is interested in the Temple Terrace Library. Another thing that is coming up, of course, the main thing coming up is the Senior Expo on September 19th. Before I came over to the police, fire, public safety meeting, I went over to the library and I read something that's kind of disturbing. And that is that, once again, that Congress is hassling over health care, threatening to shut down the government. This really kind of bothers me because there's so many things that could be done to cut health care costs if people are willing to do them. Now, I could list a whole bunch of them myself. I don't have time to do that. I was even asking Carl if there's going to be somebody even there to talk to about that. But I can tell you where healthcare costs really begin the problem, the seeds of the problem begin over in our high school education. Physical education is marginalized rather than stressed. Most people these days go into their cars, drive their cars, and then go to an office to work or something like that. And that in a system that marginalizes physical education by not requiring enough credits is where the seeds of the problem over the long term. Of course, I have short-term solutions, short-term ideas too. But that, which I have been researching since my latest experience with that. But again, it has to begin with in the school where physical education needs to be stressed rather than marginalized over the long term for our younger and future generations. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Loeb. Our next speaker is Mr. Tom Wagner. Good evening, Mr. Wagner.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Went to a city council meeting a couple of weeks ago about Blazing Saddles, and one of the questions that came up was how many people here played pickleball. Wasn't able to see a show of hands, so I thought it was a good opportunity to come down, introduce myself. I'm on the board of Temple Terrace's pickleball club, and thought it'd be a great opportunity to be able to invite each of you, either as a group, one combined group, to come down and learn how to play pickleball, learn a little bit more about the club and the facilities here in Temple Terrace, or if you'd like to schedule something individually. I've done this many times along with some of my peers in the club in order to introduce people to the sport, and it's been very successful in the past, working with the vets, working with the community center down the street, introducing people to the sport and getting it there. The only thing I ask is I need to have some kind of idea how many people would like to do it, if there is any interest at all. Hopefully there is, and we can set something up. Again, individually, if you'd like to do it personally with your family, wives, or coworkers, however you'd like to structure it, we're here to help support it. We are a community service, so we do a lot of things within Temple Terrace, and this would just be one more outreach program in order to educate people about pickleball. Secondly, I'd like to leave you with a presentation that's been prepared. I can get this to you electronically as well. It talks a little bit about the pickleball club and how we support the community. Talks about the history, about how long we've been here and some of the things that we've done to support the community. Explains some of the challenges that the club has, both playing in the rec center and also at the Richland Court. We've made a lot of progress, and it has been a tremendous sport that continues to grow exponentially. But there are some pain points. There's some things that we work very closely with the Parks and Recs Department. They've been fantastic as far as supporting us and making some advancements there. So we very much work as a team to address the needs. There are some things that Hillsborough County and City of Tampa have done to make some improvements and expanding some of their areas. What we would like to offer from a club perspective is to show our support, and if there are things that we can do as a 501c3 in order to help facilitate that, in order to see if we can get that moving quicker than what it's currently planned for, we'd love to be able to help support that. Any questions? I'm open to anything that you have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wagner. And as you know, we're working, yes, you can give that to the city clerk.
Thank you.
Okay, council, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Sorry, second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No nays. Consent agenda is adopted. Next item is a resolution approving a 5% increase in monthly rates for city water, irrigation, and wastewater. City Manager Bahia, I think you were going to speak to this?
Yes, sir. Before I start, let me just say, we're having some technical issues with the audio on streaming, so to Facebook and YouTube right now. We're trying to work through it. We haven't been able to resolve it yet. We've posted on Facebook to let residents know that we're having technical issues. The recording tomorrow will have audio, but at this point, we're just trying to get it resolved and we haven't been successful thus
Okay,
far.
well, thank you for letting everybody know that, 'cause
Okay, if I could ask, thank you. So just a short presentation talking about the water and wastewater fund and the irrigation rate as well. So as we discussed in the budget workshops over the summer, we were looking at a 5% increase for the water and wastewater rate for the upcoming year. This is consistent with last year's pro forma projection. It'll help cover also the nearly $3.8 million in infrastructure improvements that are programmed in fiscal year '26, including also an additional meter tech. As the community may not be aware, but every year the city of Tampa raises their wastewater rates to us because we forward our wastewater to their disposal and treatment. This year it's a 3% increase from the city of Tampa, which our increase will also absorb. In addition, the fund itself has been challenged, particularly over the last year. The Fowler Avenue sanitary sewer repair has been an ongoing, and I'm happy to say it looks like it's ending now, challenge for our community. In addition, we had a PFAS, as Councilmember Kravitz alluded to a little while ago, I should say. We had a PFAS change order to the tune of $234,000 that also, again, put more stress on the fund. The PFAS change order actually came in after the workshops, but we felt comfortable enough we could still maintain the initial recommendation of 5%, and that's where we are. Would also like to, of course, when we have this discussion, see how we compare to the other jurisdictions in the county. So this is actually prepared by Mr. Ingram. He did an excellent job. Every year we look at sort of an average scenario here. There is not a one measure of water consumption. Everybody's different. But we looked at an average single-family home that might consume 5,000 gallons in a month of water. Obviously, that would mean 5,000 gallons in wastewater as well, and then might have irrigation, a separate irrigation meter for a total of 3,000 gallons there. And if you sugar that all out, you get numbers that you see on the chart ahead of you. You see 9879 for the city of Temple Terrace, 8822 for Tampa, 9487 for Plant City, and then 9184 for the county. So you might think, okay, we're on the high side. One thing that we always try to make sure the community understands is that there's more to this picture, right? As the gentleman from the county speaking earlier and the consultant, what they also noted is there's a lot of stormwater issues that need to be addressed. And they mentioned there's a stormwater fee. So all the other jurisdictions have stormwater fees. In this county, we do not. So we are the only community right now that does not have one. So if you add the stormwater fee onto this bill, which everybody's going to be responsible for in these other communities, then you see the math is a little different at the end. So in essence, City of Temple Terrace, we come out at 9879. You can see the rest of the progression there. And you can see this illustrated graphically here in this slide. And I'm happy to answer questions. Mr. Ingram's also here as well, if you have any specific questions.
thank you. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Seeing none. Council members, are there questions? Councilmember Fernandez.
When you look at the slide with the wastewater fee, we are paying, or we're charging, or our highest, we are the highest rate for wastewater. So is that, I mean, for us, it's basically a pass-through. It's what we're being charged to send our wastewater to City of Tampa. Why do we need to charge more than City of Tampa is charging if they're treating our wastewater?
I'm going to ask Mr. Ingram to come up, because I think that has to do with how the calculation was probably put together.
Well, there's infrastructure too, all the pipes belong to us.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, theirs is $7.81, ours will go to $12.59 per 1,000 gallons. I'm not sure I can give you a good answer tonight on that, honestly. There are additional costs. I mean, we buy the wastewater services from Tampa, but we also have some of our own infrastructure involved. We have a division that handles within the water and sewer fund, or sewer division, which has costs itself. So naturally, our costs are going to be more than what the city of Tampa can provide to their residents. They are actually increasing our costs by 3% every year, but they are, if you look at their increases, theirs is more than 5% increase being passed down to their consumers. So we're actually catching up a little bit with Tampa over the years, because they put this in place. This year, I believe it's 6%, and they've had a pretty aggressive formula for increasing those rates because of a pipes program. This affects their water rates too, and you can actually go on to their website and read about that. These rates have been in existence. We build on it each year to increase it based on what Tampa is passing down to us. So yes, it is higher and higher than some of the other. I don't know how Plant City or the county handles it, but that's probably the best answer I can give you at this moment. We can certainly do more research into that, but.
Okay, so then my question for the city manager or any of the city staff is, and that is do we have any alternatives with wastewater treatment that might be more economical? I know that we have to maintain our pipes, and I understand that, and there would have to be a connection, but is there another source? Just, the county's doing something, Plant City is doing something.
Maybe ask Mr. Warrenfeld to come up.
Mayor, members of council, recently, and as you know from my straight tenure as the Public Works Operations Director, when I got to utilities, I had the same focus there with looking at cost reduction to everything. We have recently had a conversation with Hillsborough County as far as them providing sanitary wastewater services for the city. Now, we have an interlocal with the city of Tampa that we are currently obligated to send our wastewater there, and the piping is all directed there. So as we work through this, there are additional costs. Where does that offset the savings? We're not sure yet. We have paused those conversations because PFAS has kicked up, and we're more focused on that right now than I am at the maybe slight reduction we would have in the wastewater. So I believe there is an opportunity there, but we haven't fully fleshed it out to determine what it is. And again, like I said, we will have capital costs to get our pipes aligned, to get it to the county, which we're not sure that it's beneficial unless there's a significant development or annexation that allows us to go that route. So potentially, but we haven't fully fleshed it out.
Okay, and then I have a question about the water meters. And I know that we have older meters and we're replacing them as time goes on. But is there a possibility, so sometimes it happens that somebody has a leak and they find out about this leak at the time they get their water bill read, or if they have an older meter, maybe it's not as accurate or something like that. They find out later and their bill is hundreds and hundreds of dollars and they're shocked and obviously, very dismayed. Is there a way with any of the newer meters that the city could get an alert to unusually high water usage, like in a more real time to stop that?
Sure. Can I ask, I saw Ms. Torres, there she is. Can I get our utility billing manager, Ms. Torres, to come up? She actually has something they've implemented already, and she can speak to the meters as well, the technology.
Good evening. Yes, with the new census technology that we're moving towards, there are options that would be available for customers that could have real-time alerts, real-time display of consumption that would help our customers have a better idea of what's going on at their personal property if there was such a thing as a leak or discrepancy in usage. As we move closer and closer towards getting full AMI technology, we would be able to experience some of those benefits. Along with that, we are currently working on a program that would allow, while somewhat manual, some alert for our residents as far as when we see higher than normal usage.
Okay, so do we have, I know we've got a capital improvement plan, but do we have an idea of how quickly we would actually be running through and getting meters replaced?
So we have, I believe, over $500,000 in this year's up on the 26 budget to replace meters. That is a multi-year program to replace all the meters in the city. We'd be hard pressed to do it all in 1 year financially, the fund would. So we are phasing this out. It's going to take several more years at this point. I believe it's at least 5 years, if not longer, I think, 5 to 7 right now, based on our budgeting.
Okay, but is there a way, as if funding became available, grants or something, because obviously this would be improved water management and less waste, is it possible to progress faster should the funds become available?
Sure, yeah, if we had an infusion of funds from a grant or something like that, yes, we can make more, we can make an inroads.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Mr. Ingham, what's the impact on the reserves going forward? What's the projection of the reserves as we move forward through time, at least 26 and 27, based on these rates?
Well, we would still maintain that 25% balance. That's what we were trying to achieve.
That's key.
Yes. Some of our early estimates on revenues are thankfully trending better, which is helping offset the extra costs on the PFAS that the PO change order with CHA. So that is helpful. So for now, with what we know, 5% will still be able to achieve that 25%. I would, if I may, I got some more information on the Ms. Fernandez's question. I alluded to, we have our own cost. So the overall structure for determining the calculation for the wastewater fee or charges, it includes not only what Tampa charges, but the cost for staffing, infrastructure, and the transportation of the wastewater to Tampa. So there are some specific things involved in that fee, which obviously makes our fee higher than what it would cost Tampa to provide to their citizens. And we have a great staff that knows a lot of these, has dealt with with these issues and has a lot of information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Kravitz.
Just a real quick question. This includes 500,000, I think, from a different funding source outside of the enterprise fund going into the enterprise fund, if I recall. Is that correct? This,
I think you may be referring to the $500,000 improvement for the Montrose gravity main, that if we had not put that into the CIT fund, so we're going to use community investment tax funds to pay for that project this year. If we had not done that, we were looking at an 8% increase. We talked to the county. They said, yes, that's fine. They've done it. They've used their community investment tax funds to do similar projects like that. So it does help offset those costs so that we don't have to increase as much.
yeah, I understand. Thank you for refreshing my memory on that. It was, my concern was more in the direction of, given that it's an enterprise fund, it isn't strictly operating as an unsubsidized enterprise at this point because we've moved $500,000 into it, and that we are passing on a slight savings in this year to the residents.
Correct.
Going forward, though, it seems like we probably should anticipate slightly higher increases than 5%. Would that be accurate?
So can I,
Yes.
so right now, it's, I think, too early to project what the increases will be in the future. Again, just want to remember that the PFAS issue is going to be one that we're going to have to take a really hard look at, because if we have to do any sort of treatment solution and to the tune of, like I mentioned in the town hall, Tampa's treatment solution is $200 million, so they're going to be looking at a substantial increase in their fees if they try to implement that. Whatever the scale is for our treatment solution, it will have an impact on our fees. So we'll have to figure that out once we get that information.
I yield the floor.
Mayor, can I just, accounting clarification, we did not move 500,000 into the enterprise fund. For anybody listening, you cannot transfer money from a general fund or the CIT or any other fund into an enterprise fund, but we did fund a project that could have been funded out of the enterprise fund, but also could be funded with CIT funds, and we chose to fund it with CIT funds. So it reduced the draw on the enterprise fund revenue and fund balance. But just in case somebody got confused about that, that's all.
Thank you.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you, council members. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the 5% increase in monthly rates for city water, irrigation, and wastewater services.
Second.
Effective.
Effective October 1st, 2025.
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion of the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No nays. Resolution is adopted. Item 8B, resolution approving a 5% increase in monthly rates for city collection and disposal of solid waste and recyclables. City manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're just waiting for them to pull up. There it is. Okay. So we're looking at the sanitation rate. So similarly to the water and wastewater, we are recommending a 5% increase, as was discussed at the summer workshops. This, again, is consistent with last year's pro forma projection. This also absorbs an 18% increase from the county in tipping fees. So I just want to make sure the public understands that over the last 5 years, the city of Temple Terrace has had to pay 111% more for tipping and basically taking of our trash to the county landfill. Despite that, we're just recommending 5%. This 5% will also allow us to acquire 2 new residential rear load trucks, as well as to add a sanitation driver and 2 maintenance attendant positions. I want to highlight one thing here. We could not have achieved just a 5% increase were it not for the work that Mr. Munoz and Mr. Warrenfeld and the entire sanitation team do in terms of providing excellent customer service, getting new accounts, increasing the revenue, because that's what they've done to help us. This is the enterprise fund that operates the most like a business, and that's why it's so critically important that we acquire the new vehicles and have the staff to continue to meet that demand and bring in the revenue needed to keep the rates where at a reasonable pace. Now, looking at how we compare, so in fact, we compare very well in terms of disposal. So this is residential proposed rates. So we're looking at October 1, if this is approved, $37.12 would be the monthly charge for Temple Terrace. Tampa, it's $41.86. Plant City's $30.06, but I'm going to explain that in just a sec. And then the county's $42.56. So if you look at it, the Tampa and the county and Temple Terrace have very similar services. Twice weekly trash, once weekly recycling, and once weekly yard waste. The county does charge for their annual pickup. They do assess a fee. We do not assess a fee for the one annual pickup. City of Plant City does only one free half load for the annual pickup. And also, if you look at it, Plant City does not offer a senior rate any longer. So we still do that. So in essence, we're performing at a way of still absorbing some of that cost and being very competitive in pricing. And you can see that again, just graphically illustrated here.
Thank you, Mr. B. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, council member questions. Vice Mayor.
Real quick, Mr. Ingram, reserve balance,
Excuse me?
reserve balances.
Oh. This one, as you may recall, was in dire straits just 2 years ago. We have been slowly building that back up. Doing the pro forma, we are projecting an 18% ratio from the fund balance to the operating expenditures. A little less than 3 months, but as we're looking at the 5-year pro forma, our current calculations are that within a few years, we can get that up to a sustainable level at 25% and hopefully not have the same kind of rate increases. A lot of that will depend, though, on our dependency on the county. I know that we have a contract for the tipping fees. I believe that expires at some point. And I think Mr. Warrenfeldt has some ideas about that, how we can save money.
How low was it before? It was around 10%, wasn't it?
It was under 10%,
So
yes.
we're making inroads. And our auditors want us at 25, as whatever we can to be at 25, correct?
Right, yes.
Good job.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, other questions, council members? Okay, if there are no further questions, is there a motion?
Move to approve a resolution authorizing a 5% increase in monthly rates for city collection, disposal of residential, commercials, solid waste, recyclable services effective October 1st, 2025.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion of the motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays. Resolution is adopted. Thank you, Mr. B. and Mr. Ingram. Next item is a second public hearing and second reading of ordinance 1583, adopting the fiscal year 2026 tax levy. I'll open the public hearing and ask our finance director, Mr. Ingram, to explain. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Ross and City Council. In accordance with the applicable provisions of the city charter and the Florida statutes, the City Council scheduled 2 public hearings on the property tax millage levy. The first hearing was held on September 3rd, 2025, to solicit public comments on the proposed property tax millage levy prior to the adoption of the annual budget for the 2026 fiscal year. The agenda has been structured to provide the council with the opportunity to comply with both city charter and Florida statutory requirements on the budget and tax levy. The council convened a public hearing on the proposed property tax millage levy and made announcements at the public hearing prior to formal consideration of the attached ordinance. The recommended City of Temple Terrace, Florida property tax millage rate for fiscal year 2026 is 6.455 per $1,000 of assessed value, which is the identical mill from the current fiscal year millage rate of 6.455. The recommended property tax millage rate of 6.455 is 0.3902 mils, or 6.43% higher than the rolled back rate of 6.0648. The main reasons for ad valorem tax revenues increasing are a proposed 4% cost of living adjustment to general employees and a 2% merit pay increase upon a successful performance evaluation. Funding for the second year of a 3-year fire union contract. Funding for the third year of a 3-year police union contract. 10% increase in general liability, property insurance, and auto insurance. 12% increase in health insurance. 2.9% increase in operational cost to maintain funding of current services and programs. Cost reductions include $259,300 in debt service payments due to making the final payment in fiscal year 25 on the Temple Terrace Country Club loan. The maximum millage rate allowed to adopt the rate with a majority vote is 6.3383. The maximum millage rate to adopt the rate with a 2/3 vote is 6.9721. Therefore, a 2/3 vote of the governing body is required to adopt the millage rate of 6.4550. And it is recommended that City Council adopt Ordinance 1583 on this second reading, and I will stand for any questions.
Mr. Ingham, just clarify, because I think I heard you just say 6.450, but it's really 6.455.
Yeah, I thought I corrected myself. 6.4550 is the millage rate proposed.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ingham. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Council member questions? Okay, thank you very much. If that's no questions, I will close the public hearing and ask the clerk to read the title of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, adopting a millage rate of 6.455 mils for fiscal year 2026. Said millage rate being 0.3902 mils, or 6.43% more than the rolled back rate of 6.0648 mils, directing the city clerk to provide certified copies of this ordinance to the county property appraiser, county tax collector, and the State Department of Revenue, providing a severability clause and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Council, is there a motion?
Move to approve ordinance 1583 on second reading, adopting the fiscal year 2026 tax levy.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion of the motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, we need a roll call vote. I'm sorry. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Fernandez.
Aye.
Councilmember Chambers.
Aye.
Councilmember Kravitz.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Schisler.
Aye.
And Mayor Ross.
Aye. Good. The ordinance is adopted on second reading. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next item is a second public hearing and second reading of ordinance 1584, adopting the fiscal year 2026 annual budget. I'll open the public hearing and invite Mr. Ingham back to explain.
Thank you. Just want to say a quick thank you again to all the city staff that have worked very hard on this budget. As you know, it's a big endeavor every year. Special thanks to, we have more of the finance team here today, part of the amazing team that we have. Jennifer Newman, our Assistant Finance Director, Jamie Deavy, our Finance Operations Manager, and you've already heard from Angela Torres, our Utility Billing Manager, who is doing an excellent, they're all doing a great job. And without further ado, in accordance with the applicable provisions of the city charter and the Florida statutes, the second of two public hearings is being held tonight, Tuesday, September 17th at 6 p.m., to solicit public comment on the annual budget for the upcoming 2026 fiscal year. Notification of the public hearing was initially provided to all property owners in the truth and millage trim notices provided by the property appraiser's office in mid-August. The recommended budget was presented to the City Council in a series of budget workshops to review and solicit adjustments to the allocations of the budget documents. The total budget of fiscal year 2026 proposed is $100,470,833. There is a schedule of the capital budget is attached. I explained some of the additions or what is there for the general fund. We have just a few quick highlights. We do have $824,200 of our capital improvements are being funded through unfunded, or unassigned fund balance, and an additional $331,317 are being funded through unassigned fund balance for operational expenditures. The capital fund also includes two new funds that we created this year. Grants fund that we have $811,163 funded. The street improvement fund is at $5,250,000. This includes a $1.5 million street resurfacing surtax and our funding from the street resurfacing surtax funds, and $1.5 million being funded through non-surtax funds. That's the funds we are getting from the county that we had to submit, you may recall, this past year, the projects. One of the other new funds is a mobility fees fund that we created to separate expenditures related to capacity and growth from our street improvement fund. These revenues and expenditures were in one fund. We are now separating it out for reporting purposes and to better comply with state requirements. So these are limited to new growth and capacity. That mobility fee fund, we have $175,000 of new projects. The community investment tax fund is $2,089,588. The tax increment financing fund, which is what the CRA operates under, is $400,000. The water and sewer utilities fund is $955,940 in capital projects. The Water and Sewer Utilities Renewal and Replacement Fund is $2,800,000 in capital projects. Our Water Improvement Fund, which uses water impact fees, $40,000 in capital projects. Our Sewer Improvement Fund, which uses sewer impact fees, is $410,000 of capital projects, and the Sanitation Fund is $600,000 in capital improvement projects. And I will stand for any questions regarding the fiscal year 26 budget.
Thank you, Mr. Ingram. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, council member, are there any questions?
Please have a comment.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. If there are no questions, I'll close the public hearing and ask the clerk to read the title of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, adopting the final operating budget for fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2025, and ending September 30th, 2026, and the capital improvement budget acknowledging satisfaction of statutory requirements for preparing and adopting the budget, authorizing the city manager to issue such instructions as are necessary to achieve and accomplish the service programs, authorizing the city manager or the finance director to transfer monies among the departments and programs within any fund, authorizing the city manager or the finance director upon receipt of a donation or grant to appropriate said funds in the expenditure line item of the program as requested by the donor grantor, adopting the recitals as legislative findings and intent, providing a severability clause, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Council, is there a motion?
Yes, move to approve on second reading ordinance 1584, adopting the fiscal year 2026 annual budget.
Second.
Motion is second by Councilmember Fernandez, and Councilmember Fernandez, you're recognized for discussion.
So I just have a comment for anybody who's listening, because the budget process is a very long process, but if you're only seeing this meeting or the last meeting, you might not know how much discussion goes into establishing the budget. So we have several workshops that we do to help establish the budget for all of our different funds. And so tonight we can say, I don't have any questions because we've discussed the budget so much previously. But I also want to make sure that people do know that if things change throughout the year, we are able to make adjustments to the budget as needs arise or needs change. So it's not set in stone. That's all.
Councilmembers, other questions? Vice Mayor.
Real quick comment. Just acknowledging the hard work that all the department heads, and particularly the finance department. I know what it takes to do this, and you guys have been working on this nonstop for probably 6-8 months now. So congratulations, a good job and a good budget. Be easy to work with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion of the motion? If not, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Last time.
Councilmember Fernandez.
Aye.
Councilmember Chambers.
Aye.
Councilmember Kravitz.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Schisler.
Aye.
And Mayor Ross.
Aye. The ordinance 1584 adopting the fiscal year 2026 budget is adopted on second reading. Thank you, Mr. Ingram. Next up, a resolution approving the final site plan, or otherwise known as SPR-25-05, for a new emergency operations center located at 124 Bullard Parkway. Mr. Moreto, our city planner, is here to present. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. My name is Joe Moretta. As Mayor Ross just told you, I'm a city planner with the Community Development Department. It's my first hearing, so if If you don't see me again, it may have something to do with the way I present it tonight. But I'm here to present the final site plan for the Emergency Operations Center. The Emergency Operations Center is located on a 1.45 acre parcel right next to the existing Fire Station 1 on 124 Bullard Parkway. The design is proposing a co-location with Fire Station Number 1 for operational efficiency. It's a two-story building comprised of 8,955 square feet. It's going to be a hardened essential facility, which means that it's going to be designed, the site and the building, to be capable of sustaining operations in severe weather or emergencies. Just to walk you through the existing land uses in the area, to the west is Fire Station Number 1 and retail. To the east is Broadway Avenue, Temple Terrace Public Library. To the north is Floto Avenue, Temple Terrace Elementary School. And to the south is Bullard Parkway, multifamily and retail. To walk you through the adjacent zoning, the site itself is zoned commercial office. To the west is commercial general. To the east is commercial office. To the north is residential 10. To the south is commercial general. And all this area is within the CRA overlay. In terms of the regulatory review that was performed on this site, the use is permissible within the existing CO zoning. The site plan complies with all the adopted engineering standards in the city of Temple Terrace. However, there are waivers sought to facilitate the co-location due to the limited parcel size and to harden the site for emergency operations, along with balancing the operations along with the regulations and the uniqueness of how this site will perform its duty. Just to show you what the site looks like, that's the south side, a rendering of the south side along Bullard Parkway. To the north and east is a rendering along Broadway and also to Floto. Back to Bullard Parkway, you can see the south and west side. The west side's facing the current Fire Station 1. Now I'd like to touch on the waivers that are being requested. As I mentioned before, the waivers are being requested because of the operations as the regulations apply to this site. It's a very unique type of building and operation. The requested waivers, we believe, provide an appropriate balance of code relief and aesthetics for compatibility and also for sustained operations. I'm going to walk through the different areas of the code where the relief is sought. Starting out with section 12-291, building frontage. This is primarily coming from the CRA requirements. The application seeks relief from the facade requirements for windows, ground level retail, since this is not going to be retail, the minimum ceiling height for retail, which is 18 feet. Again, this is not going to be retail, and awnings. A lot of the relief, for example, like the facade requirements where it requires additional window and awning treatments, a lot of those are being balanced and seeking relief because it is a building that's being designed to operate in extreme weather, and additional windows and things like awnings. There are other things that are being proposed to offset that, and we can look at that, talk about that a little bit more. But again, the building's proposed to operate in extreme weather, so by design, don't want to include things in the building that could disrupt that operation, like breaking windows or things flying away from the building, either hitting the fire station or something nearby. There's also relief sought from the build to line. The build to line operates like a setback. The build to line is 10 feet in the CRA, and that build to line is required along Bullard Parkway and along Broadway Avenue. The application proposes relief because of the parcel size to move the building towards Broadway, actually right on the parcel line. It also proposes relief from the build to line. With the build to line, you have to put the building actually right on that line. So most codes operate by a maximum setback where you can move back as far as you want. This one requires you to bring the building up to the front. In this case, the building is proposed to be 25 feet back, primarily to allow for some sight distance for the existing fire station. When trucks are exiting the site, it would be hazardous to have no sight distance along Bullard Parkway. And also to make the building somewhat consistent with the massing of the Temple Terrace library that's located to the east. And again, a lot of it's driven by managing parcel size and being able to fit this in a constrained area in order to co-locate it with the existing fire station. Moving on to site lighting, section 12-296, relief from the CRA required poles along Bullard Parkway and Broadway. I want to emphasize that the lighting on the site in terms of photometrics is compliant. So the lighting's not being reduced. What the application seeks some relief from is the actual the poles that are required in the CRA. So there's existing poles there now along, at least on the corner of Bullard and Broadway, that provide the lighting. And the site lighting itself, whether it be on the building or in the parking lot, all complies with the photometrics in the Land Development Code. Moving on to additional waivers, section 12-828, sidewalks. Relief is sought due to the security concerns of having a sidewalk along Broadway and also along Floto. I would point out there's existing sidewalk network to the east of Broadway and also along Floto to the north. So in terms of children walking, if they do need to walk to Bullard or anyone seeking to walk north, there's an existing sidewalk network that connects from this site because there's an existing sidewalk on the subject site along Bullard Parkway. So that network will remain intact, but the sidewalk along Broadway and Floto is being requested for relief to not put that there, in part due to the parcel size, but also due to the fact that it's a security concern and the site is not being programmed for pedestrian activity on the site. The site has exiting emergency vehicles and things of that nature, so the sidewalks are not something that would really fit into the design. Moving on to section 12-0149, the required perimeter landscaping. The perimeter landscaping for the parking lot along Broadway is compliant. There is relief sought along Floto. There's an access point along Floto, and there's a constrained area in the parking lot where the access comes in. And it's very limited in terms of being able to provide the landscaping in that area, which includes trees, and maintain the site distance, because as similar to the concerns with the fire truck along Bullard Parkway on Floto, as cars are moving in or out, there could be issues if that site distance isn't maintained in terms of being able to keep that area clear so you can look side to side when you're driving a car either coming in or out. Moving along to the next page, in terms of parking, again, the parcel is very limited in terms of area, in terms of locating this building with Fire Station 1. The parking requirement's 48. Relief is sought to move it to 24. The relief is sought because we believe that there could be adequate, it will sustain parking for adequate amounts of programming that are anticipated, and it definitely can cover the amount needed for any operations that will be conducted during an emergency. Moving on, and we're wrapping up here, section 12-957, bicycle parking. The relief is sought because the site's not being activated for pedestrian activity. Section 12-1048, required interior landscaping that's interior to the actual parking lot itself, is compliant except for one tree planting, which is required in the area near where the handicap spot is. And since the parcel's limited and the handicap space needs a little bit more space, it's very difficult to fit a tree, so there is relief sought in that area as well. That pretty much concludes the waivers. I believe the building, if you've seen the renderings, and we can go back to them if you like, it's going to provide a very good balance of the regulations in the CRA. The building's going to be a very nice looking building that fits the architectural style in the CRA, and it will provide you a building we believe that you can be proud of and that will be able to enhance your emergency operations moving in the future. We also have available the architect, who I believe we believe, not just me, did a very fine job on this, Mr. John Thompson, and Fire Chief Ian Kemp is here as well. So anyway, that's all I have unless you have questions.
Thank you, Mr. Morito. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this? Seeing none, council members, are there questions? Councilmember Fernandez.
So I'm not sure who this question would be for, but with the lighting, what would, if we're already putting up the light poles that are the decorative light posts in other areas, and if there's a storm, they're just as much at risk of being damaged, what would be the reason why they can't be used in this location?
In this location, right now, really the thrust of this is to build the building on an existing site. So for example, the parking lot's been repurposed. There's existing poles out there right now that are providing lighting along the right-of-way. So the thought process is to utilize those poles until the lifespan is done, and then at that point, there can be some consideration given to replace them with the more robust, architecturally, compliant poles. But the lighting is sufficient, though.
Okay, and so now I have a question for stormwater drainage. And I know that we have a stormwater retention tank under the parking lot to handle stormwater on this site. But I know also that this was an area that had some problems during the storm and that may be connected to part of the system that Hillsborough County maintains. And I just want to make sure that we've given consideration, as this is to be an emergency operations center, that we've given consideration to the fact that potentially water could come up high enough that, are we building the building up a little ways so that if the water does rise, that the building's still operational? And have we considered the stormwater system in the immediate area?
So I don't recall there being a stormwater issue at the site. I'm not sure are you really talking the site or just generally down the road further to the east?
I think I'm thinking farther down Bullard Parkway, but I think it was on Bullard Parkway where.
So we definitely had issues further east where Temple Terrace Highway was flooded out for several days. And that's largely related to the lift station the county had that wasn't running on generator to take that water away. Maybe I can ask Mr. Warrenfeldt if he can come up and address, again, I'm not familiar with the stormwater issue, but he's probably pulling up a map right now, can answer your question.
Mayor, City Council. Nothing that I'm aware of was brought through engineering as far as stormwater concerns for this location. As I look at the map, there are 4 inlets in very close proximity to this property. They tie into a 42-inch that's on Bullard Parkway, which ties into the 48-inch that runs up north and south on 56th Street. So as far as stormwater runoff, obviously it depends on the rain, what capacity looks like in those pipes. But knowing the site and the grade of the sites, the impervious surface that they're going to add based on the inlets in close proximity, I mean, nothing has been red flagged in engineering, so I would say that there should not be a concern about flooding, particularly in that location.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Chambers.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't really have any site plan questions, but infrastructure, you mentioned this was designed to be hardened. Was it designed at Category 5 and higher?
4.
Why not 5? I've seen 5s.
The building,
We just need to know who you are for the record.
yeah, good evening, John Thompson with Wilder Architecture. The building is designed in the code as an essential facility, so it's risk category 4. And then the wind speed that it's designed to, the V ultimate, is 200 miles per hour.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's maintained as an essential facility. It gets a structural upgrade in the code, and so we are conforming with that requirement.
Okay, so what you just said, that's above Category 5 in the hurricane world.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. My second question, will this tie into the existing generator for Fire Station 1, or will it have its own standalone?
We've analyzed the existing generator and found that it had sufficient capacity to also serve this building as well. So we're taking advantage of that.
Okay, so it's big enough to do air conditioning at both facilities when power's out?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I got two quick questions. One deals with the stormwater vault. Is that in existence now?
The
Or is that
storm-
something that's going to be put in?
The stormwater vault is proposed.
How
It's
big?
new construction.
How big? Just curiosity, what's the capacity of that? Any idea?
We have the civil engineer.
Okay.
Michael Knight with Aurora Civil, and you had asked me the one question that I do not know the exact volume on.
Okay.
But
I wasn't trying to put you on the spot.
no, but the site is designed for storing the entire 100-year volume, which in this part of the county is about 12 inches. So if you can picture the parking lot and the building, if you drop 12 inches of water on it, that would be funneled into the vault. And this particular part of Temple Terrace, you're a very high and dry soil condition. So you are about 15 feet from what they call seasonal high. So during this time of year when it rains all the time and the water saturates the soil, it only comes up to about 15 feet below the existing surface, which is really good. For most parts of Hillsborough County would love that. So we've got a vault that is about 5 feet tall, and it's a pretty good sized vault. Okay. And then that bottom is gravel, and that is allowed to percolate. So with the perk rate you have, you'll be able to store more than a 100-year storm.
Okay, so that'll be the runoff from the proposed building.
Yes.
Now being
Right now,
now being impervious.
Yes, sir. Right now, that parking lot in that green area, when it rains, that water just sheet flows out into Broadway and out into Bullard Parkway.
Okay.
There's nothing collecting it at all.
All right, cool. Thank you. Thank you. My second question then, I think is for the planner. With the change of the sidewalks, there's a sidewalk on the west side of Broadway. You're proposing it just on the east side of Broadway.
Right now, I don't believe there is a sidewalk, to my knowledge, there isn't a sidewalk.
all right,
There's one
so-
on the east side.
The one on the
On the
east side.
library.
Will we be requiring any changes to, I don't know, signage, so forth for the kids coming out of Temple Terrace Elementary, or is that going to be pretty?
Not to my knowledge, but the sidewalk condition is exactly that way now, so it won't be introducing anything new.
All right, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's good. Good luck with the project. That's all.
Okay. If there are no further questions, council, is there a motion?
I move to approve the final site plan SPR 25-05 for a new emergency operations center at 124 Bullard Parkway with the conditions as listed.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion of the motion. I think I need to give a couple of shout outs here just to remind everybody that this project has a local match, but it is funded by the Florida legislature awarded us funding for this project. It's the bulk of this is funded by the Florida legislature. When, Chief, would we get that 2022? 2022 is when we, the Florida legislature awarded the funding for this. And so I just want to give a real big shout out to a couple of people in the legislature that helped us push this through. Representative Lawrence McClure, who is from Dover, he's still in office, still has always been very friendly to the city of Temple Terrace, and in this case sponsored this and pushed it through for us in the House of Representatives. Senator Danny Burgess, who is a Zephyr Hills senator at that time, covered part of Temple Terrace. He sponsored it and helped push it through the Senate. Along with Senator Darrell Rousson, who is our current state senator, who co-sponsored it in the Senate. And then also would like to thank Governor Ron DeSantis, who vetoed this the year before, and we were able to prevail upon him not to veto it in 2022. So I do want to give those folks credit. Without those members and others who supported it, Representative Driscoll among them, without their support, we would not be building this building, which is much needed, having sat in the current EOC for 9 years now. Every time there's a storm that threatens, I can tell you that this building, and I probably won't be in office when this is, well, yeah, I should be in office when this is done. So by golly, I'm sitting in there even if there's no storm. But anyway, I wanted to recognize those people for their contributions to this. So thank you very much. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? No nays? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good job, Mr. Moreto. I suspect you'll be back. Next is the second public hearing and second reading of ordinance 1581 approving the rezoning application, otherwise known as RZP-24-01, for the property located at 306 Bullard Parkway. I will open the public hearing and ask anyone who intends to speak on this matter to stand and be sworn in by the city clerk.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide the board tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Mrs. Schoen, would you please poll the council for ex parte communications?
Yes, at this time, if each council member would state in turn whether they have had any ex parte communications, either written or oral, with anyone concerning this matter. If so, and in writing, a copy of that communication must be provided to the clerk as soon as possible. If you have had any ex parte communication, please state with whom that communication occurred, when that occurred, and what the substance of that communication was. And starting to my left, I will start with Councilperson Fernandez.
I have none.
Okay, Councilperson Chambers.
I've had none.
Mayor Ross.
None.
Vice Mayor Schizler.
I've had none.
And Councilperson Kravitz.
None.
Thank you.
And to present, we have our Community Development Deputy Director, Marissa Robinson. Good evening, Ms. Robinson.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. This is the modification of the plan development on second public hearing and second reading for 306 Bullard Parkway. This is a general area map. The property is located at the intersection of Bullard Parkway and Ridgedale Road. It is 0.77 acres and is currently zoned plan development. The proposed use is office and residential. This is the proposed master plan. The applicant is seeking a waiver of Land Development Code Section 12-235E3. The final site plan is required within 2 years after the rezoning approval. The waiver is to allow 5 years to submit the final site plan. The proposed uses are professional office, medical dental office, daycare, portrait studio, public building, public station, school, veterinary clinic, healthcare facility, single-family dwelling, and bed and breakfast. Conditions to this approval: pursuant to the approved waiver, a final site plan must be submitted within 5 years of approval. All future changes in use are subject to review requirements of the Land Development Code. All non-residential uses shall conform with the commercial office zoning standards as described in the Land Development Code. All residential uses shall conform with residential 10 zoning standards as described in the Land Development Code. All uses shall meet parking requirements as described in the Land Development Code. Minor modifications may be approved subject to Section 12-380 of the Land Development Code. And for standards that are not specified herein are subject to the Land Development Code. And thank you, and I'll stand for any questions, and the applicant is here.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Would the applicant like to speak? Good evening, sir. Welcome back.
Honorable Mayor and council members, I'm Gordon Schiff. I'm the attorney for the applicant. I have with me again Todd Amidon from Landmark Engineering and Surveying, and we are here to answer any questions you may have, and we respectfully request your approval.
Thank you, sir. Are there members of the public who wish to comment? Seeing none, council members, questions for staff or the applicant?
No.
Very good. Thank you very much. If there are no questions, I will close the public hearing and ask the clerk to read the title of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, approving the amendment to a planned development for 0.77 plus or minus acres of property lying north of Bullard Parkway and east of North 56th Street, addressed as 306 Bullard Parkway for RZP-24-01. providing for amendment of the official zoning atlas map of the city, providing for the severability, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for an effective date, and providing for correction of typographical errors.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Council, is there a motion?
Move to approve on second public hearing and second reading of ordinance 1581, approving rezoning application RZP-24-01 for 306 Bullard Parkway.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion of the motion?
Do we need to say as conditions is listed?
That probably wouldn't be a bad idea. Thank you.
With conditions as outlined by staff.
Second.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chambers. Any discussions of the motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays. Ordinance is adopted on second reading. Thank you very much for your patience. So next, before I open this public hearing, I do have a question for staff. This is entitled Second Public Hearing and Second Reading of Ordinance 1582, amending Chapter 12 regarding historical preservation. However, I thought that we were going to be doing this for first reading since we made substantive changes. Is my memory serving me?
Yes.
I thought Mr. Mueller had told us since we made substantive changes that we would need to do.
That is correct.
Mayor? My recollection was that last week it was considered first reading because it had been discussed. So therefore, we would do second reading this week.
That was my.
Or this
Can
meeting.
we
2
pause
weeks
for a
ago.
second? Would you take a look at the minutes? Because I think that this was put back for first reading because I remember, I think it was Councilmember Chambers that specifically asked the question is why would that need to be? Because we've done this before, and the response was, we need to do it because the changes made are substantial, they're not just minor. So let's take a look at the minutes if we could.
On page 8, we have that City Attorney Mueller stated that he feels this is a substantial change, and out of an abundance of caution, he would have advised to go back to first reading and do the second reading at the next meeting.
It says, third paragraph.
That's what I recollected also. So, Ms. Shoshone, this seems to be easily resolved as long as we conform with the statute simply by opening the public hearing as the first public hearing and then putting it on the agenda.
I don't think that's what the minutes say.
My question is, I heard something about this before, and I did speak with the city attorney about this. How many times has this come up before you as first reading? Only once, or have you done first reading twice?
Well, let me clarify because I may have just been wrong. City Attorney Mueller added with this change of new language, it would be considered the first reading tonight, which is 9/2, and then a second reading would be in 2 weeks,
So this is the second reading then?
according to this.
Yes.
That was my recollection. That's why I was surprised when I heard that.
What do you, well, Councilmember Kravitz.
I just wanted to briefly point out, this can't be the second reading because this is the first time we've actually had the text of this in front of us. So unless the text is in existence, we can't have a first reading for it. So this must logically be the first reading.
Well, that's not what we've done in the past because we have made changes between first and second reading.
We didn't make changes last time. Staff went and worked on changes in the subsequent period after we ended the council meeting previously. Wow. So those changes didn't exist.
I don't know what you just said. Say that again, please.
Staff didn't make these changes until after we adjourned the previous council meeting. This is the first time this has been ever in front of us. We didn't know what the law would look like last time because it hadn't been written.
We have made changes between first and second reading on other ordinances.
Right. And so it sounds like that at your last meeting, because changes had been made, that instead of the last one, which you were expecting it to be a second reading, the city attorney announced that it was not the second reading, it was the first again. And now we have a second.
That's right.
So,
I could just make one more point.
Councilmember Kravitz.
We're discussing this. You said that changes had been made last time. That is not accurate. We made a motion to instruct staff to make changes. That is not the same as making changes. The making of the changes happens after the meeting is adjourned, and staff then execute on our instruction, which is what subsequently happened, leading to this statutory text now laying in front of us.
We've done that for years.
Maybe so, but it doesn't seem correct to me to say that this is the second reading because we haven't had a first reading,
We've
because we
done that
can't
for
have
years.
that on account of the statute not existing.
We've done that. It's not a statute, it's an ordinance, and we've done that for years. We'll have a hearing on first reading, we'll change some things, and then it'll come back with the revisions at second reading. We've done that for years.
I'm happy to file a protest then, but I don't see how you can have a second reading for something that hasn't even existed for the first reading.
Okay, so this is not a change in council procedure, this is what we've done for years. Okay, so I think we're square.
I think we're square. If you, another quote later down the meeting, it says, Councilmember Chambers stated that he supported this to be first reading and supports the changes tonight. So I think we did first reading last time.
Okay, so,
That was our position.
okay, so the next agenda item, I stand corrected, is the second public hearing and second reading of ordinance 1582, amending chapter 12, article 11, entitled Historic Preservation. I'll open the public hearing, apologize for the confusion, and our Deputy Director of Community Development, Marissa Robinson, is here to explain.
Hi. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Marissa Robinson with Community Development. Tonight, I'm going to be presenting the amendment to the Historic Preservation Ordinance on second reading. I'd like to review the proposed changes to the ordinance discussed on the September 2nd council meeting. The council requested that the ordinance be amended to include the public notice delivery confirmation to all property owners of each property proposed for designation. The language has been added to section 12-1160A3 as follows. The city will provide notice to all property owners of each property proposed for designation, either individually or in a proposed historic district, using a manner that will confirm that the notice was delivered, including but not limited to certified mail, FedEx, UPS, or hand delivery. In addition to the public notice delivery confirmation, council requested that a local historic district designation process be changed from an owner object process to an owner consent. The amended language in section 12-1160A3 states the following. No individual historic property or site will be designated without written consent of the property owner, and no historic district will be designated without written consent of the owners of at least 50% plus one of the properties in the proposed district. These are the two proposed amendments to be included in the amendments that were previously noted. Thank you, and I'll be here for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Seeing none. Since there are none, I will close the council members, I'm sorry. Questions? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing and ask the clerk to read the title of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, amending Chapter 12, Article 11 of the Temple Terrace Code of Ordinances entitled Historic Preservation, removing Section 12-1160A2 and adding Section 12-1160A3 regarding consent of property owners for a proposed historic designation or district, revising Section 12-1160E2 regarding modification of the boundaries of a proposed historic district, and adding Section 12-1160E5 regarding an appeal process, providing for severability, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing authority to codify, providing an effective date.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion?
Move to approve ordinance, on second reading, ordinance 1582, amending chapter 12, article 11, excuse me, entitled Historic Preservation.
Second.
Motion second, discussion of the ordinance. Councilmember Kravitz.
Just going to go on the record. This is a big improvement over the previous version. I'm really happy to see that. Fantastic that we have the notice requirements. Fantastic that it's largely opt-in. However, no one is interested in having their property in an historic protection program. We're still at grand total of 0, as far as I'm aware. We have previous statements from August 1st, 2023, when the voluntary program was introduced. Ms. Barlow, who worked on this statute draft, stated that the 1990s effort that she had identified in that council session required mandatory participation, and that was the reason given for why it didn't work. So we're moving in that direction. I'll just go on the record one more time and say there isn't a pot of gold waiting for us to renovate historic buildings. That is a chimera. It's not going to happen. And I'll point out, in spite of Vice Mayor Schizler's motion now to approve this, so he can't actually vote against this resolution, but he would have voted against it in August 1st, 2023, when he said that the ordinance should be written back then in a way so as to prevent a future city council from changing it from voluntary to mandatory. And unfortunately, that is what we're doing, even though it's massively weakened relative to the previous time, which, as I've said, I welcome. He even called it a poison pill. He said that it should be, that he's had concerns of phone calls regarding this issue. People are still concerned about it, even if people aren't saying it. I'm very sad to see Vice Mayor Schizler reverse his vote on this. So I'm sure I will be outvoted today, but I think that we're doing a disservice to our community with this statute, and we should really go back to incorporating the voluntary principle. We need to get people on board with historic preservation by persuading them that it's the right thing to do, that it makes sense for them, and that it's of value to them. And then they will come all on their own without being forced. I understand that the goal here is to obtain grant money. Don't think that's going to happen, as I've said. I'll just finish out by saying the idea that we're all fine because an individual homeowner can object, that it can't be done over his objection, that is a good principle to have in here, but the risk is that a district is created centered around the golf course, which is a National Historic Landmark. Every house around the golf course could easily be designated, even the ones that are not historically relevant, because they're part of this district. And then all of a sudden, you've created a very large historic district. I think that this board, the Historic Preservation Board, has existed for 2 years. It has not obtained its mission. I would like to see it obtain its mission, but it has not done that yet. And so, I commend them for their work, but I think that they have not done the work necessary to persuade people that this is relevant and necessary and a good idea for them. And that's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see people voluntarily go into this program because it's right for them. So, that's all. I yield the floor.
Further discussion of the motion.
I have one comment.
Councilmember Fernandez.
But I would like to say that no council can write any ordinance or enact any law that prevents a future council from acting they can change it, they can rescind it, they can do anything. So, that's impossible.
I was just pointing out the depth of the opposition
Yes.
2 years ago.
But I just wanted to make sure for anybody listening that they know that any council, no current council can bind a future council because a future council can take their own action. That was it.
Yep.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Opposed? 1 nay. Ordinance is adopted on second reading. Next is a resolution considering for approval the city manager's employment agreement renewal between City Manager Bailly and the City of Temple Terrace. Some weeks ago, the council directed me to meet with Mr. Bailly to go over the terms of renewing his contract, and I have done so. So I will go through it and highlight the substantial changes. There are many like cleanup languages, like changing the time period and things like that. I'm not going to walk through every one of those. If there's questions, I'll be happy to address them, but I'm going to talk about the substantial changes, substantive changes. Nothing on page 1, nothing on page 2. On page 3, we did omit section 3, which reads, the council shall fix any, we omitted the whole section, so I think it bears mentioning. The council shall fix any such other reasonable terms and conditions of employment as it may determine from time to time regarding the performance of employee, provided such terms and conditions are not inconsistent or in conflict with the provisions of this agreement, the city charter, or any other law. We felt that, first of all, we felt like that was kind of covered in the other parts of the contract, and we weren't really sure exactly what that meant. So there are some changes in termination, both with cause and without cause. We'll begin with without cause because it comes first in the contract. The severance pay under the termination without cause called for a severance payment within 45 business days. That's been changed to within 10 business days. Paragraph 2 under that talked about the payout of unused accruals, and we simply cleaned that up to say it's payable in the same time frame in the same manner as all general employees, no different for the city manager. Termination for cause did change some. Some of it was cleanup language, but we did change a portion. So I'm going to read it, and then I'll point out the part that changed. This part is current. The council may also, for cause, terminate the employment of the manager at any time whatsoever by affirmative vote of not less than 3 members of the city council. In the event the manager's employment is terminated for cause, the city shall be under no obligation to pay severance pay described under the previous section or the continuation of health insurance described under another previous section. This part is changed. Right? It says, in the event of an arrest described below, if the city manager is found not guilty of any charges by a court of competent jurisdiction, the city shall pay the manager for his back pay from the date of his dismissal or the severance, whichever is greater. That's new language. This has also been revised. It says the term for cause shall be deemed to only include the following: breach of any material terms of this contract, gross negligence in the handling of city affairs, willful violation of the provisions of law, willful disregard of a legal direct order or policy of the city council, willful disregard of city policies, procedures, illegal or habitual drug or alcohol abuse, intoxication in the workplace, violation of the city's ethics codes, or failure to cooperate in any lawful investigation above. And then in the event the manager is terminated for cause, the city shall provide written notice to the manager stating the reasons for termination not more than 7 days after the action is taken. Okay, there were changes in that. It's page 6, discusses salary, annual review and compensation. It is proposed that we adjust the city manager's salary, and I've sent the council backup materials to fill out how that analysis was done, and I want to thank our assistant city manager and HR director, Tony Nazario, and his team for helping us conduct that analysis. So you've seen the backup material, but nobody else has, and so just so you know how we did this, we took an analysis of similarly sized peer cities throughout the state of Florida, and we compared them on the basis of 2 things. Our first comparison was cities of similar population, and the second one was cities with a similar budget as ours. Both of those analyses yielded very similar results. They were only slightly off. We rounded to the lowest one of those, and came up with a fair market salary of $211,000. Now, considering that, assuming that the council would have approved a 6% raise like the other general employees are getting, this would go above that raise, an additional market adjustment in the raise. But it would be inclusive, so don't, if you approve this $211,000, I'm not going to ask you in the next item to come back and go, okay, 6% on top of that. That's just inclusive of that. Another change in this paragraph, and this is something for the council to consider. I'm in favor of it, but this is a decision that you could easily change if you wanted to right now. The ending sentence on this paragraph concerning compensation says, this is new language again, at minimum, the manager shall be eligible for annual salary increases applicable to the city's non-union employees. Now, I do want to point out that this language is new. It's not been in previous city manager contracts. It's also not in the other two charter members' contracts. I'm in favor of this, however, and I would be in favor if the council wishes to add it to the other two charter members' contracts. And the reason that I'm in favor of it is a few years ago, as a council, most of you will remember, we got ourselves into a pay compression issue throughout the organization because we did what a lot of organizations do throughout the years is we bumped up our entry level and lower paid employees because they were the ones obviously suffering the most through COVID years and inflationary times. But that causes compression on the people above them. And so we had a situation where people were often making the same amount or with overtime, maybe even more than their supervisors or directors. We've fixed that over the past several years, but it's cost us quite a bit. But we've got ourselves in a good place where there's very good internal equity between the ranges, the bands of ranges. I think this is a good idea to prevent that from happening again, but that's up to the council's decision. So, the evaluation requirement, it didn't change a lot. We cleaned up the language a little bit. We talked about annual evaluations. However, not every council member does annual evaluations. So the language in here is if the council individually, council members, or as a body, the council doesn't do evaluations, it doesn't affect the manager's ability to receive raises. Page 7, the top paragraph concerns contributions to the 401A retirement account. This changed simply because Mr. Bahia has been with the city long enough to fulfill the 3 years and get to the 100%, so we took out that whole escalating, if he's here for so long, it's so much percent and all that. Now, he's at 100% contributions per the city rules now. We cleaned up the cell phone language, that he will continue to get the same cell phone stipend as all other general employees. Most of this is cleanup language. Vacation time, at the bottom, beginning on the bottom of page 7 and continuing on the top of page 8. Vacation time is proposed to increase from 3 weeks to 4, which puts him in line with more tenured now that he's been with us for a while. We changed the amount in the section below that concerning insurance, concerning proposed paragraph A, which talks about short-term disability. The number in the original contract 3 years ago of $950, turned out that was an erroneous number even 3 years ago. However, the intent of it was to provide a policy which provides 60% of his basic weekly earnings. That part did not change. Obviously, the amount of the policy would have to change to reflect the current, but the proportion didn't change. Page 9, professional development, we did up the $5,000 budget for professional development conferences and so forth from $5,000 to $7,000. We have done that, well, we did that for ourselves in the FY '26 budget. We upped our professional budget, development budget also. Residence requirements have not changed. Suspension requirements, nothing has changed. Bottom of page 10, if there were minor changes to this, if the city changes its form of government by charter amendment to one in which the role of city manager is substantially diminished, the council must offer the manager the option to be retained for a period of not less than 1 month after the government change is approved. It's really just kind of language. Notwithstanding the manager's acceptance or refusal of the option to stay on for a month, the employee shall still have the right to declare that such an amendment constitutes termination and he is entitled to severance. And that really is the summary of I'm happy to answer any questions that I can or to talk about some of the minor changes that I skipped over if there are questions about that. So, Vice Mayor.
Regarding vacation, what is our accrual policy for that level?
450, you mean the cap?
The cap.
450 hours.
Okay.
That's the same for everybody.
So, but, we're going to give you 4 weeks. You never get to take 4 weeks.
It's capped at 450. Councilmember Kravitz.
Just curious, what's the background of the removal of Section 3, other terms and conditions of employment? I'm curious why that was struck through completely.
We weren't sure what it would cover that wasn't covered in other parts of the contract.
Was it, did we have counsel advising us on this contract? Just curious.
We did.
Okay. They didn't see an issue with that?
No.
Okay.
No. Yes, I neglected to mention that. Thank you. We did have legal review.
Okay.
Yeah, I should have said that. Thank you.
That's all. Yeah.
Councilmember Fernandez.
Just to make sure, I know that there were items that would come up periodically that our former contract was out of alignment with what we were doing with other employees. So all of this language changing has made this more consistent with what is available with other employees, like accruing the 50 hours of vacation and the salary increases, et cetera.
Well, the 450 hours is not a new cap. That cap has existed. In fact, a previous city manager asked the council to waive that requirement for the city manager's position, and the council said no, it was going to retain. So the 450-hour cap, that's not a change.
I'm just asking about, in years past, we've said, this isn't really consistent with what we're doing for the rest of employees. That was just a general example, but just to make sure that the language changes that we've made make this employment contract in those all of those areas more consistent with what we do across the city.
It is, and I know one of the goals of Mr. Nazario is to try to make the charter officers' contracts a little more consistent than they are. And we talk about every time we do that, we're like, yes, 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 and then we get to the next contract and we're like, well, so it's harder to do. One of the changes that we made, personally, I think we should offer that change to the other two charters, and that's they would automatically get the same raises as the other general employees for the reasons I stated. Now, in the past, council has been like, I'm not a fan of automatic escalators in contracts, and we've had that discussion about, well, nobody else has an automatic escalator. But this language just puts them on par with the other employees. It doesn't guarantee them they're going to get a 5% raise. So if we don't get raises that year, they don't get them either.
Right.
So that's obviously we don't have to discuss that now. We would have to take a separate action to do that. But the only thing inconsistent somewhat I wouldn't even say this is inconsistent, because we've done market adjustments internally for some of our directors that we've brought on, and also to create internal equity, because not every department director makes the same, because some departments are small, some are huge. And so there is a market adjustment and not just the COLA. Yes.
As long as that wouldn't preclude the market making that change to the other charter contracts, it would not preclude any market adjustments. I'm in favor of it also. 'Cause
Yeah, but they're more, we just hired them.
No, I realize
So
that.
we
I realize
did
that.
the
No, I realize that.
analysis, right? I don't think.
We're just talking general,
Yeah,
because
they're-
I've seen councils before give a charter employee, a good raise, and then the council changes, and weeks later take it away. So,
Well-
yeah.
Well, they could not do that without violating the agreement, because there's language in there about reducing the that's not new
We've seen that
language.
happen before.
Well, anything
Yeah.
can happen,
Yeah.
but it does
No, I
have
agree.
a
I
provision
agree.
in here that
Gives some
doesn't allow for
protection.
that. Yeah, yeah. So, I don't know, if there are other questions, I'm happy to answer them. If not, if there's a motion, that would be appropriate too.
I move to adopt the resolution approving the city manager employment agreement between Carlos Bahia and the city of Temple Terrace.
Second.
Motion and second, discussion of the contract, discussion of the motion.
Thank you for doing this.
Yes. If not, you're welcome. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No nays. Contract is approved. We got you for at least 3 more years, right?
Can I?
We have a provision in here that you cannot resign.
Part of the lease.
I saw that. I'd just like to thank the mayor for negotiating this and for the council for your support. It's been a great 3 years. I'm looking forward to a lot more ahead of us. So thank you. And I want to thank the team also for being supportive, because any success that I've had has been almost entirely due to the great team that we've got here in the city of Temple Terrace. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. B. Okay, council business. We have one item on the agenda, and then I'll open it up to other topics. Charter officer evaluations. As you know, the council completed evaluations recently on the 3 charter officers, although 2 of them were a little difficult to do because Ms. Sater's brand new and Mr. Mueller's brand new in his role now. But we did them in order to keep them on the right time frame. So any questions about the evaluation process or? No. Okay. Now is when we usually discuss the topic of extending the same raises to, in this case, it would be the other 2 charter officers that the general employees are getting, which is 4% COLA and 2% merit. Last year, it's not binding on this year, last year the council decided, in the interest of fairness, since the charter officers are really kind of in a category of their own, that we gave all 6% at the same time, because the charter officers had divergent evaluation dates, and therefore I think one of them, I can't remember which one, wouldn't have gotten the 2% until like almost the end of the fiscal year. So they'd be 2% behind the charter officers, the other 2 all the time. So we gave both of those raises at the same time. You're not bound by that, but that's what we did. So whatever the council's pleasure is, if there's a motion, it would be appropriate at this time.
Well, my question is, since they were so recently hired into these positions, aren't we already at the existing market for this year, for those 2 positions?
That's a good question. It's a different answer for the 2 of them. The city attorney, we brought in, he got a pretty good bump between deputy city attorney and city attorney to maintain that internal equity where he should have fallen with department of directors and the city manager and so forth. So he got a pretty healthy bump. I will tell you that I negotiated with City Clerk Sater, and her salary desires were higher than we offered, and I mean, we did have the conversation of, look, I can't predict what the council is going to do on October the 1st, but I would hope that there's a reasonable possibility of a 6% increase, which would bring you to what you're hoping to make. So I would be a big advocate for giving it to both of them to keep the internal equity where it should be, particularly with the city manager getting a market bump up quite a bit, and the directors getting the 6%. If we don't give the city attorney the 6%, I don't think he's gonna starve to death, but I do think we've now created some internal disequity that we may regret later on. Yeah.
Mr. Ingham, how do we budget it? How do we budget for the charter employees?
Defer that question to Jennifer Newman, who oversees our wages.
Jennifer Newman,
Budget.
Assistant Finance Director. I budgeted them with the 6%. So,
I would agree with that also.
Councilmember Chambers?
Okay, the 2% anniversary date increase with a successful evaluation is on the anniversary date, but we evaluate now. So there's some merit to giving the employees the 2% merit at a successful evaluation, which is
I
now.
think that was part of our reasoning.
It was last year. It was last year.
Yeah.
So motion. I move to give the remaining two charter officers 6% increase effective October 1.
Second.
Motion second.
But
Discuss.
I do have a discussion.
Okay.
With the provision, where do we put the provision to put in their contract the same language we just did for the city manager with the non-union employees?
You can roll that into the same.
Would that be
motion.
appropriate to roll that in now?
You could do that. It would have to be brought back before the council for approval, but.
So what is I'm ready to add that to my motion.
Okay.
Okay,
You
I
wanna
just
amend
added
the
it.
motion?
I will amend my motion to add the language about the non-union employees, the same raises. We can change that as council. You know, we can give more in their contracts later on when we renegotiate their contracts, but put that in.
I'm not sure what we're doing at this.
The motion is to grant the 6% raises
Right.
October 1st and to revise the two remaining charter officers' contract to reflect that they would get the same annual raises as the general employees.
So your question was we'd have to bring the contracts back for,
Well, yeah, they would have to be brought back. I mean, you're basically addressing
okay,
me to
so
get Ernie
so
to
this
make.
goes back to my comment earlier, my question earlier, would this preclude any market adjustments during the scope of their contracts or the remaining term, time?
I think the language said minimum.
Pardon me?
I think the language said it would be a minimum of what the general employees got.
It's just shown,
Yeah, it says a minimum.
You can make that, you can include both of those things in your motion. Obviously, the contracts would have to be amended to reflect, if you approve it, to reflect that language in their contracts.
Okay, second. Redo the second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays. I will, with the city attorney when he returns and talk about the, Mr. Nazario, could you do that? Can you make a note to yourself to cause that language to be revised and bring it back to us? Thank you. Any other council business? Councilmember Kravitz.
I have some goodies to distribute. Thought I would bring this up, given the recent excitement about the award that Riverside Park has obtained for being so excellently designed, which caught me a little bit off guard because my understanding was that we had gone to residents and gotten feedback from hundreds of them about what amenities they wanted to have at Riverside Park and what amenities they didn't want to have at Riverside Park. And I thought that we were also only at 60% completion of Riverside Park's design. So if something's at 60% completion, I'm always a little bit taken aback when it gets an award, although it is a positive signal, of course. But I thought that since we are at 60% in the design process, even if the existing design has gotten an award, we are expecting the consulting company to come back to us and take resident feedback into account in making the park design. So we're still waiting for that. So I don't know if they submitted the design that takes resident feedback into account or not. I certainly hope they did, but I haven't seen what they've submitted, but I do know that they got an award. Now, I looked at what residents said back then. We got 161 replies, and people were able to cast 5 votes for the amenities that they like most. And so I've identified the top 3. You know, of course, I would have been happy to put this on as an agenda item, but that's increasingly difficult. So I identified the top 3 that are disliked, so to speak. None of them made 50%. The only 4th item that almost made 50%, but didn't, was restroom improvements. I think it lost by maybe 1 or 2 votes, but I didn't go after restroom improvements. I think that we need to look at Riverside Park because the total scope of the project is about $5.56 million. So when you take the South Park and the North Park, so I'm talking about the section around Springdale Pond as the northern part, and the park proper south of River Hills, it's an expensive park. And I think that we've had a lot of expenses lately. I love the park idea. I definitely want to do it. But I think we do need to kind of have a discussion gradually about how we might rein the project in ever so slightly and really focus the investment on the things that residents actually want most strongly. Now, I'm not saying that no one wants a fishing pier, but it is accurate to say that the fewest people wanted a fishing pier. So I'm not saying that I don't want people to have a fishing pier. I'm not saying that I don't like fishing piers or fishing. I'm just saying that when we're looking for cost savings, it's probably a good idea to look at what the fewest people care about. So I've identified those 3. 3 is arbitrary. You can look at bottom 1, bottom 2, bottom 3, bottom 4, whatever you want to do. So, I mean, the minimum ask, I think, is that probably get rid of the fishing pier and save $150,000. And then on page 2 here, the other thing that I've done is I looked at another big expense item that I don't think is critical to the park, which is paved sidewalks. Now, I'm not saying we don't want sidewalks in the park, but there are different materials you can use when you're building a sidewalk. And when it comes to sidewalks, one thing that we've repeatedly discussed here in council is how good it is to have permeable walkways because they absorb water. So everyone's concerned about water. And if we build up everything with asphalt, concrete, the water has more difficulty flowing away and draining. So this is an advantage in 2 ways then. First of all, it's considerably cheaper. And second of all, it is a little bit nicer for drainage. And there's even maybe a 3rd benefit. If you look at what people were most interested in when it comes to Riverside Park, it is actually jogging. They want to run around in the park and jog. Not necessarily play in the open spaces, but they want like jogging tracks and walking tracks. And speaking as someone who does like to walk a lot, the concrete walkways are rougher on your knees. And especially if you're jogging, you'll probably want to gravitate more toward permeable surfaces. So that led me to think that if we actually do go ahead and spend a lot of money on building concrete paved sidewalks, people may actually just end up jogging on the grass because it's easier on their knees anyway. If we were to go with a compressed gravel solution, I think we could save, I think the amount was about maybe 350 grand. Rough estimate, again, this is just me ballparking things. I really have no idea. This is just kind of a general rough estimate, what I'm looking at here. But if we want to look at cost savings for Riverside Park, we do have to start somewhere. And so this is to kick off that discussion. I'd like to see where we can find those savings in a way that aggravates the fewest people, obviously, and that's why you have this document in front of you. So I'd be very happy to entertain some discussion about this document, if anyone would like to pitch in.
Well, I would like to pitch in, because on Friday, the city manager sent us this Friday update and told us that he was going to recommend tonight that we schedule a workshop to discuss this. Are we going to have this discussion now, or are we going to have a workshop?
Workshop's fine.
Okay, well, that was in the update on Friday. So I think he's about to ask us to schedule a workshop.
Happy to talk about it now, too, though.
Okay,
Whatever
well,
you want.
I think, I mean, it's up to you guys. I thought we were going to have a workshop on this.
Then I motioned that we have a workshop about this. Because
why don't
as far
we-
as I know, the update doesn't necessarily contain a motion, so I'll provide that. I would like to motion for us to continue this discussion in a workshop, so it would please the court.
Council, if there's a second, I'd like to hear, well, I'd really like to hear the city manager get a chance to talk to us before we make this motion, before he's had a chance to explain what the heck he's proposing. But if you want to vote to have a workshop, we'll vote. We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion of the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Wait, I do have a discussion. So if we, if I want to hear from the city manager before this motion.
vote no.
And we vote no, can it be brought up again when he makes the recommendation?
Yes.
I would like to make a motion.
You already did.
I would like to make a motion to suspend the rules to allow the city manager to briefly address the point that Councilman Chambers
Oh, my God.
has brought up.
What are we going to parse next?
So easy.
What's really easy is to let the meeting go the way it's supposed to go and let him do what he said he was going to do on Friday. That would be so easy.
He can't do that without
So
a
now
motion.
we have a motion to suspend the rules. Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
So we have a motion to suspend the rules. Is there discussion on that motion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion to suspend the rules, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Nay. Motion fails. Now we go back to the main motion, which is to schedule the workshop. And we can do that, or we can wait for a minute and hear the presentation. It's up to you. We do have a motion. Is there discussion of that motion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
That motion fails also. Okay, any other council business?
So we have no workshop.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
I think we're gonna get there in a minute, though, and you can make another motion, that would be fine. I'll defer to you, make it when we get there.
Would you like the motion now?
No, we just went through that. Is there other council business to come before the council? Okay, is there any new business or board reports? Okay, Mr. Bahia, would you like to make a report, please?
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. As we were just discussing, as the council was just discussing, so Riverside Park, so in your update on Friday, you do have the estimates, as Councilmember Kravitz alluded to, there's an estimate breakdown in costs for the northern section, Springdale Pond, the breakdown in costs for the southern section. As you are aware, based on the approval tonight, we have $3.8 million budgeted for this project. It is coming in at about $5.7 million right now. I am recommending the workshop so that we can get clear direction from the council as to an approach we could do here. Now, we could do there are several items in this budget that we can acquire independently of the contractor and save some money for typical things that the Leisure Services Department is very familiar with in terms of equipment. That'll help. We also could phase the project. That could be, there's different ways you could phase it. You could do one in the northern side or do the southern side, or you can do elements in each. So that is the type of direction that we were seeking. We think that a workshop setting would be the best and most appropriate setting to do that. So I wanted to recommend that this evening and to see if the council is amenable to holding that at some point soon.
Councilmember Kravitz.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to point out one thing. The proper way to run the meeting is that all of the members up here get to make motions and discuss. There's no proper way to do it beyond that, as long as the rules are followed. I just wanted to briefly address that point. So I'm sorry if I rubbed any people the wrong way with my making a motion. So And I also want to point out, the workshop was not previously on the agenda, so one of us was going to have to put that on the agenda by making a motion. Whether it was me or anyone else, it doesn't really matter to me one way or another, but it did require a motion because it was not on the agenda when I walked in this room. So regardless of what is in the council update, in order for us to exercise our constitutional authority to legislate and run the city, we actually do have to make motions. And so I'm happy to make a motion that the city manager be instructed to schedule a workshop to discuss Riverside Park.
Second.
Motion, second. Discussion of the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No nays. We schedule a workshop.
Next item I have is I'd like to ask Director Warren Felts to come up. For the first time in a long time, I can actually say this sentence that we have good news regarding the Fowler Avenue sanitary sewer project.
Mayor, members of the council, this afternoon, the utility department assisted the Sun Civil contractors along Fowler with making the final connection of the gravity main, and we have turned off all the bypass pumps. They have been removed from the right-of-ways, and they are staged now. They will be staged until Friday. We'll have them removed starting Friday. There is a significant amount of rehab work on both sides of the roadway. There is some additional utility work that will slow down the south side rehab. TECO has to redo a line that was a conflict through this project, which will require some directional drilling. That will slow us down a little bit, but the bulk of the work has been completed. We are now a gravity system again. There is no pumping of wastewater. All the manholes have been installed. The lids are installed, which should be a reduction very soon of the smell. There had been a strong odor down there because we were aerating all the wastewater as it was going through in the pumping process. So I did get confirmation a little bit ago that the lids are installed. I was down there when they pulled the plugs and everything was flowing as usual. So we didn't hit the 1 year anniversary, but I'm happy for that. So we are good steps, and we'll work to get the rest of it done. I would anticipate a few more weeks till we get all the rehab done and are completely out of there.
Well, congratulations to you and your team. And for all
Who
your
gets the
work.
light pole, the original light pole? Does that go to your office or?
No, FDO, the light pole that had fallen originally, FDOT has claimed that, and they will be repairing or replacing that later, probably at least a month or so
I
out.
figured you would have enshrined the old ones.
No. We're happy just to not have pumps down there right now. So.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Warfield.
Next item, I just wanted to remind the council that Senior Expo is this Friday, 9 to 12 at Lightfoot. And then on October 7th, from 6 to 8 p.m., we'll be having National Night Out at the Family Rec Center. And the last thing related to that is our agenda is pretty light, and that's probably an overstatement. It's pretty non-existent right now for October 7th. We usually try to keep a light agenda. We don't have any pressing business. So if the council wishes to consider canceling the meeting for October 7th, you could. We don't have anything right now programmed to bring before you.
Mr. Schoen, is that legally permissible per the charter?
It's not really it's not really addressed in the charter, but it is somewhat addressed in your procedures. So, after discussing this with the city attorney, it is recommended that you, if you're agreeable to this, that you make a motion to postpone that meeting to the same date as your next October meeting, because your procedures don't address cancellations of meetings. They only address postponement of meetings, and sort of stick with the language in your procedures.
Okay, thank you. Council members?
Move to postpone, make a motion, move to postpone the meeting till the.
So you make a motion to postpone your October 7 meeting till your October 21st meeting.
Say that again, please.
Move to postpone the October 7th meeting to October 21st, 2025.
Motion?
Okay, I will second that, and I do have a question.
Motion and discussion of the motion. Okay.
So my only question is that somebody is assigned the historic fact for October 7th and October 21st, so can we do two on October 21st, or will we need to realign? I need to know personally because I'm the one.
Or you're off the hook.
No, I don't want to be off the hook. I have a good fact.
It's not my decision to make, but it seems easier for the city clerk if we just kept the same rotation.
And I have a question, because my list shows me having it October 7th.
Yeah, I don't have it October 7th. I have it the 21st.
I know, but
Do
they're
you
gonna,
mind just skipping it? And let's keep the same rotation so she doesn't have to.
it's gonna break my heart, but I will skip it.
You're just that kind of guy.
I'll take one for the team,
I'm
yes.
November 18th if you want it. No, I already got my copy.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to basically cancel the October 7th meeting.
Postpone.
Postpone.
Postpone it to, okay. Further discussion of the motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No nays? Very well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's all I have.
I'm out of town anyway.
This is shown our stunt double city attorney.
You know, I'm better looking than Ernie. I have more hair.
Well.
Anyway, I just wanted to say that it's nice to see everybody again and I have no report.
Well, thank you for filling in on short notice. We do appreciate it because we would have been in the lurch without
No
Mr.
problem.
Mueller tonight. That came up quickly, so thank you. Okay, council, we will be adjourned.